All right. Thanks for joining me in this episode of The Gospel Truth. I'm your host, Marlon Wilson, and we have another fantastic debate for you tonight. This is a late night show for The Gospel Truth. Y'all know how I usually get down, man. I'll be on here at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But now we are on here late night after 11:30 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm glad that you were able to join us. We're going to have a fun-filled discussion. But before I bring the guys in to get this debate going, I do want to make sure you know to subscribe to The Gospel Truth. Hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss out on any shows that are coming up here on The Gospel Truth. You want to miss out on anything. If you don't know, The Gospel Truth is not only on YouTube, but also on Facebook, Twitter or X, Instagram, and TikTok. So if you want to see what else The Gospel Truth does outside of debates, you can go venture to those platforms and see what I do. All right. Also, all this content is on podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. So if you want to just listen to the audio, don't care too much about the video, you have that option with the podcast. So make sure you do that. And as always, I have a whole bunch of shows that are coming up here in the future that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. After this debate, is Jesus the Father? I have Otis Lewis versus God Logic, alternate Avery Austin. God Logic, and this is going to be a fun debate. Both of these guys have been on before, and I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be an exciting debate, so I hope you look forward to it as well. After that, I have Hostclaw and I have Jethro, who is going to jump on to the Gospel Truth. Noah Hostclaw, should I say, who is going to jump on the Gospel Truth, and they're going to be debating infant baptism in the early church. So this is going to be a fun debate. It looks like it's going to be a lot of church history in depth in this debate. So if that church history is one of those things you like to listen to and debate, have at it here. Come check it out. All right. After that, I have another great debate coming up here. These guys are going to be debating the Father alone is God of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Fun debate. This is going to be exciting. I hope you can join us with this one as well. And then I have a 2-on-2 debate that's also coming up, and we are going to have fun with this one. Some familiar faces in this one as well. And so hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. Oneness and the Godhead. Monarchy, to be more specifically of the premise of the debate and the Godhead. All right. Hope you're looking forward to it. Also, we have a Why Calvinist debate. It's coming up in February 22nd to 24th. This is not being put on by The Gospel Truth, but these are some friends of mine who are doing a Calvinist conference. And so we got some familiar faces here. We got Dr. James White, Jeffrey Rice. We got Dr. Tom Buck, Matt Slick. We got a whole bunch of familiar faces here. So hopefully you'll be able to join Andrew Rappaport as well. So hopefully you'll be able to join us as well, join them as well. Because I don't know if I'm gonna be there, but hopefully you'll put in your heart to go. And it's gonna be in Tennessee, Tullahoma, Tennessee. So if you're looking forward to it, looking into it, you can go ahead and check them out on Facebook or on YouTube. Open Air Theology, and they have all the information needed for you to get in line with that conference. All right. That said, all of the announcements are out the way. I have Vocab Malone with me, and I have Mr. Judah Natzarah. I think I pronounced it right. He probably gonna correct me. Natzarah. I believe I pronounced it right. But anyway, we are going to have a fantastic discussion concerning does Isaiah 53 pertain to Jesus of Nazareth? So this is going to be a fun topic. Let me bring these guys in so they can introduce themselves to you guys so we can jump right into this debate. All right. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing? I think you muted, Zuda. I think you muted.
What's going on?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, what's going on, y'all? Some of y'all loud, man. Y'all come in, cut that mic down a little bit. Let me control that mic a little bit. No, you good. I'm gonna bring y'all down as y'all talk, but I'm glad you guys joined me, man, for a late night debate. And Judah, you are joining us from Tokyo. Am I correct?
Yes. Tokyo, Japan. It is 1:45 in the afternoon.
Yes. How cold is it over there right now?
It's about snow weather. We're getting a little bit of snow.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you took time out your schedule to join us in this debate, man. This is going to be a fun one, man. What's up, Vocab? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for hosting the debate.
Oh, no doubt, man. You got that beard looking spicy, bro. What's going on? You got to put me on the game with the beard, man. I try to grow my beard out. It ain't happening, man. Maybe it's the Italiano in you. You know, you're Italian, so Italians grow beards like crazy. I'm black, so my beard coming a little choppy. So you got to put me on the game, man. You got to help me up, man.
The struggle beard. You got the struggle beard?
Yeah, I got the struggle beard. It don't grow right, man. It don't grow right. But I'm excited. What's up, Vocab?
I was gonna say, at least it grows on your head, right? Oh, my bad. Never mind.
I see Vocab shooting. He's shooting on me. It's all good, man. I look good with a bald head, man. You can't say that. Can't say that for most folks, man. I look good with a bald head. It's all good, man. It's all good.
One day I'll be joining you. Give it time.
No doubt. But I'm excited for you guys joining me, man. We're gonna have fun with this topic, man. But before we get into it and go through the format and everything, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourselves to the audience. Tell them what you do. Blogs, YouTube channels, websites, whatever it is, let them know what you do so they can come check you out, all right? Start with Vocab. Go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself, Vocab.
Yeah, my name is Vocab. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I got into apologetics a couple of decades ago when I started doing more street evangelism. So it's just kind of tied in, doing both things for me. And in the beginning, it was a lot of atheists and a lot of different types of cults like the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons. A little bit of Roman Catholicism, and then transitioned pretty heavy into Islam as far as the main area of focus. And then I guess the past 8 years now, going on 8 years, mainly dealing with elements of Hebrew Israelism. And so that's what brings me here tonight. Although tonight's debate could be very similar to a discussion that you hear between a Christian and certain strands of people who practice Judaism, there will be some similarity to it. And really, that's the last thing I'll say real quick. Just tonight, yeah, it's a debate, but it's kind of like a Bible study too. You know, we're going to open up the Bible together, look at the scripture, and do our best by God's grace to truly see what it says and then apply it to our lives. So that's what I look forward to tonight. So thanks, Judah, for coming, and thanks, Marlon, for hosting.
No doubt. Thank you, Vocab, for coming on and giving a good introduction. All right, Judah, you're up next, man. Go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself, man.
All right, shalom to everybody, and which means peace. I'm Judah Natzarah from the Torah Knights. We are what people would call a Old Testament. We don't call it that. We call it a Torah-based Israelite group. We also have New Testament people too, as well. We are Vocab labeled us a debate group. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I wouldn't necessarily deny that. But yeah, man, I'm coming to you guys from Tokyo, Japan, and I'm initially from Cleveland, Ohio. And I've been in this Israelite thing for about 30 years. So, it's pretty much it, man. You can find my YouTube channel, Judah Natzarah, or you can find SOJ Devion, which SOJ is Sons of Jacob, Torah Knights. And, and other brothers too. I'm sorry, but I can't think of everyone's channel right now, but thank you very much. Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much for those introductions, man. Remember, folks, go check them out and see what they're about. So we're going to jump into this debate. The premise of this debate is, does Isaiah 53 pertain to Jesus of Nazareth? And so we're going to start that with 1 minute openings, and then we're going to have a number of rebuttal rounds. The first rebuttal round will be 15 minutes each, and then the second rebuttal round will be 10 minutes each. And then we're going to follow that with cross-examination, which will be 10 minutes each for cross-X. And then both of you will have 90 seconds to respond to those questions. The third round of rebuttal will be coming up after that, which will be 8 minutes each. And then we'll have a 20-minute audience Q&A. And both of you will get 90 seconds each to answer questions there. And then after that, we'll have closings for 2 minutes each. All right? Is that good? Is that good?
Oh, yes. I'm gonna share my screen too.
All right, cool. Before you do that, Vocab, make sure this 1 minute, that 1 minute chime will let you know that you have about 1 minute left in your rebuttal round. So that means that you will have, that's the indication, start wrapping your rebuttal up. And also at the 10-second mark of your of your opening, at your 10-second mark, you'll hear that chime as well. All right, at the 10-second mark of your opening. All right, so that's it. You guys have the floor. Vocab, you're up first for your opening, and I understand you're sharing your screen, so let me get you up here. All right, Vocab,
How much
you
time?
have
1 minute opening, right?
Yeah, 1 minute opening. Okay. You have 1 minute.
All right, I can share my screen.
Yep, your screen looks good.
Okay, awesome. Is Isaiah 53 about Jesus? That's what we're discussing tonight. And I'm going to say that, yes, Isaiah 53 is about Jesus, Yeshua. In fact, I would argue that it cannot be about anybody else. There's no other real good candidate. It's ultimately, Isaiah 53 means that the Messiah willingly provided payment for sinners. Yeshua died in place of others as a perfect substitute. And I'm going to show tonight a few parallels that are going to be important tonight. I'm going to show Isaiah 53:1 that you have people rejecting the servant's message there. People are going to reject his person. People are going to reject his mission. But his vicarious suffering is going to affect atonement between God and man. He's going to willingly submit to suffering, the person in this passage. We're going to see his death and his burial. And I believe we're going to see hints about him being raised to life, exalted, and richly rewarded. So I hope to show that tonight, and I hope that you will see it tonight, because if it is true, it means that your sin is paid for by a perfect substitute. So tonight's debate, it's not merely academic, it's not random, it's very important. So thank you for being here, everybody. I look forward to a great, lively discussion.
All right. Thank you, Vocab. Appreciate that opening. All right, Judah, you're up next for your 1 minute opening, and I'll start your time. You want to share your screen as well, Judah?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
All right. While I'm sharing my screen, I just want to state for the record that any sensationalism is only due to the debate. It's just slideshow. Do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Wait, why is this? I'm sorry. Bear with me. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. So Isaiah 53 is what we're going to be speaking about, as Vocab Malone has stated before. My standpoint position is that Isaiah 53 is that it's Israel is the suffering servant who was born, dies, and comes again back to life, and also bore the sins of the Gentiles, not Jesus. Yes, so I'll be showing that as Exodus chapter 44 and 22 shows that Israel is the firstborn son, Hosea 11:1, as juxtaposed with the New Testament, which gets Israel out the way and replaces us with Jesus. So I'll be showing in this debate that the suffering servant is the nation of Israel and not Jesus. How do I stop sharing? Wait, where is it? I'm sorry. Stop sharing. I'm sorry. Bear with me.
Okay.
How do I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can. You should be able to click the shares, the share option. It should be able to bring you back to your camera.
Okay.
No, it should. I don't think it's a share there because that's on your PowerPoint, but on the options for vMix, you should be able to see it.
All right. I don't see. Okay, hold on. Bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm still learning this. All right, do you see? Am I good? Did it stop? Hello? Am I
Yeah,
still
you're
there?
good. You're good. Yeah, you're good.
Oh.
Yeah. Your screen is good. You're good to go.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you guys. All right, so now we're going to jump into our first rebuttal. And once again, this is going to be a 15-minute rebuttal for each. And so, vocab.
Rebuttal, it's our opening statement, our opening round. It's not really, I mean, I hear you, but right? Isn't the opening statement round one? Opening. I'm not rebutting what he just said.
All right, yeah, I guess it was a little confusing to me. Okay, so round one would be a 15 minutes opening.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Because I asked earlier, I said, are they rebuttals? You said, yeah, basically. So that sort of confused me right there. All right, nonetheless. Gotcha. All right, so we're going to go to the 15-minute opening, round one. And vocab, you have the floor for 15 minutes, man.
All right, awesome. Look forward to tonight's discussion. 15 minutes it is. I'll share my screen again. I'm going to endeavor to show that Isaiah 53, which really starts, of course, in Isaiah 52, should only apply to Messiah, not the nation. And here's some reasons why. Some of these, hopefully, we can get into tonight. Some of them I definitely will get into tonight. One is, I'm going to argue that that's the ancient rabbinical view, that it's an individual in this particular passage. Number two, there's distinctive pronouns that contrast, that show this is an individual, specifically the Messiah. We, us, are versus he, him, his. You're going to see that. Thirdly, you're going to see this is going to be referring to a singular personality. Fourthly, this person dies for my people. That's significant, verse 8. Fifthly, it's voluntarily. It's willing, silent, verse 9 of Isaiah 53. This person is an innocent sufferer. This person provides a substitutionary death. This person brings healing and justification. Number 9, this person dies, but Israel survives. That's a problem for the other position. Number 10, resurrection is needed. Well, it's happened in the case of Yeshua. Now, let's actually look at the passage in front of us, and I'm going to provide some commentary because I believe one of the best things to do in a debate like this, actually, to be honest, is simply to read the passage. Now, obviously, I'm going to be doing more than that, but that's one thing that needs to happen. So here we go. Isaiah 52:13, the beginning of the fourth suffering servant song, or servant song, sometimes called the suffering servant song, says this: behold my servant. Now, if you go throughout Isaiah, it is true. Sometimes the servant is clearly Israel. In one case, the person described, or the servant described, is clearly Isaiah. That's not something that's being denied here tonight. The question is, what about this passage, the suffering servant passage? And the white brackets that I have immediately after that very first term, my servant, they show times in the passages preceding that the servant is described as an individual. And then after that, I have 2 New Testament references, Matthew 12 and Mark 10, where the servant terminology is applied to Jesus himself by himself. So I would argue that he is conscious of this reality, that he indeed is the servant. And of course, in these contexts, he also speaks about his suffering. Behold, my servant shall act wisely. Now, there's a whole thing about Jesus being the wisdom of God and all wisdom being hidden in him. And even those who, I think, were his opponents understood he operated in wisdom. We could cover that if it comes up, but I'm just showing that these traits describe Jesus and no other. He shall be high and lifted up. In John 12, Jesus specifically utilizes that language in regards to himself. Interestingly enough, he does it in reference to the cross. Interesting. He shall be high and lifted up and shall be exalted. Now, I'm going to argue this language, if you look at it in other places in the Old Testament, is not given to just anyone. This language, he shall be high and lifted up, exalted, it is almost exclusively reserved for God himself. Now, shall be exalted. Interesting, because you're going to see this person humbled, and yet it says they're going to be exalted. Well, that's exactly what Paul says in Philippians 2:9 about Jesus in relationship to the cross. Isaiah 52:14, as many were astonished at you. His appearance was so marred beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the children of mankind. You got some kind of action where he doesn't look like how he should look. How is that? Why is that? Jesus was beat up. That's a simple answer. Isaiah 52:15, so shall he sprinkle many nations. Now, there may be a discussion about the translation there. That's fine. We can get into that. But the sprinkle terminology is essentially a technical term reserved for priestly activity in relationship to blood. And I have references there. Exodus 29, Leviticus 4:14, and 16. Now, this same language gets applied to Jesus, his high priestly activity in Hebrews 9:12 and 1 Peter 1:2. So shall he sprinkle many nations. Many nations, you can see that mission in Matthew 28:19 and Acts 1:8. Ask yourself, has Israel been successful in this activity? Has she? Kings shall shut their mouths because of him, for that which has not been told them they see, and that which they have not heard they understand. Paul applies this to Jesus in Romans 15:21. And before someone says, well, I don't believe in the New Testament, understand these people writing were first century faithful Hebrews who knew the Old Testament. Isaiah 53:1 continues the song, who has believed what he has heard from us? That is quoted in John 12:37-38 and Romans 10:16. And who is it? I believe this is the faithful remnant of Israel, relaying the message and truth about Messiah, and yet there's a general rejection, which we'll show later. Because who is that? Us. And who are they talking there if it's not that? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Arm of the Lord sometimes is just an anthropomorphic way to describe God's power, his activity, but there are instances where it becomes personalized in biblical theology. And I have the references in white brackets behind there. You can look those up for yourself. And not only does it become personalized, many scholars and indeed folks who studied the Old Testament prior to all these kinds of discussions believe that this is a reference to the Messiah, that type of language, the arm of the Lord. Isaiah 53:2, continuing our passage, you got to pick up this here. He grew up before him like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. That's important. This is a Davidic reference. Look at Isaiah's own writings in 11:1, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's not just Davidic, it's messianic. That's important because when you see that, you say, well, hold on, how's that going to describe all Israel? Well, it can't. It's describing the Messiah. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. Nothing special. Wasn't all handsome and fly. Isaiah 53:3, he was despised and rejected by men. That's fulfilled in the New Testament Gospels we see, and even to this day. A man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. A man of sorrows. And as of one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. We didn't reckon him to be anything. Isaiah 53:4, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Who's the R in the passage? Who's the our griefs and our sorrows? See, this doesn't work for Israel. Because you have a he carrying ours, see? And this, of course, Matthew applies to Jesus in Matthew 8:17. That literal verse. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Jesus was viewed as cursed because of the kind of death he died, and it was viewed as his own fault. Isaiah 53:5, but he was pierced, kalal. We can get into that. There's some discussion about the translation, but at the end of the day, you see, this is whatever was done here. If you don't like pierced, whatever was done was for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities, saying the same thing in a different and more intense way. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. So these things that happened to him brought us peace. Fascinating. If it's Israel, that means Gentile nations get peace because they crushed Israel? That don't seem right. And with his wounds, we are healed. Stripes, some translations say. 1 Peter 2:24 says this exact same thing. Isaiah 53:6a says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. 1 Peter 2:25 quotes that verse as well. Isaiah 53:6b, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Paul says that same thing in 2 Corinthians 5:21 about Jesus. Continuing on in verse 7, he was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, even though he was wrongly convicted. Sorry, I just wanted to make it rhyme. I didn't say that last part. 1 Peter 2:23, like a lamb Jesus is identified as the lamb by John the Baptist that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearer is silent, so he opened not his mouth. You're going to tell me Israel was silent when she was persecuted? Nah. And there's 4 scriptures I have that show the fulfillment of that in the New Testament. Verse, by oppression and judgment he was taken away, and as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living? This person is dead. And who considered means they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't understand it. And I have verses for that in the New Testament show the rulers didn't understand what they were doing. Even Jesus saying, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Stricken for the transgression of my people. Interesting phraseology. Isaiah 53:9, and they made his grave with the wicked and with the rich man in his death. Now, how does that apply to Israel? I know how it applies to Jesus. He died with thieves and was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. Although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth, the verses after show you that. You're going to tell me Israel's never done violence, never had deceit? That doesn't work. Isaiah 53:10, yet it was the will of the Lord. This is an axe. He wanted to do this to crush him. He has put him to grief when his soul, nefesh, makes an offering for guilt. And all the verses are right there on the screen where the New Testament refers to these exact things. So shall he see his offspring. How? He's cut off. Interesting. So he shall prolong his days. How? He was cut off. Into the resurrection. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Verse 11, out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied. He wants this. He likes this. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant. Notice the righteous one is identified as my servant. That means the servant's a righteous one. Is that Israel? Make many to be accounted righteous. So by what happened to him, there's going to be people who are viewed as in right standing with God. He shall bear their iniquities. Verse 12, therefore, I will divide him a portion with the many. He shall divide the spoil with the strong because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. This is saying he's going to have victory, people. That's what that's saying there because of what he did. Yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgression. Now, this whole discussion, this whole debate is a question of properly interpreting Scripture. I do want to read an at-length quote by Michael Lawrence here, because if you get too confused, I want you to remember this quote or the essence of it here tonight, please. This is a quote, the source is on the screen. If the Bible was a story with God as its author, which I contend it is, but a story whose component parts are text written by people in different languages, cultures, and historical periods, because it is, by the way, how can we be sure that we're reading the story correctly? Is there even such a thing as a correct reading? A lot of people would say there's not these days. In fact, there is such a thing as a correct meaning of a text, precisely because God, who created this world, our brains, and thus our ability to use language, is himself a speaking God. It was God who created rationality and language so that language could accurately convey meaning from one mind to another mind. And he himself proved this not only by acting in history, but also by condescending to use human language to authoritatively explain and interpret his own actions. There is a meaning to a text. Now, it's a specific genre of Scripture called prophecy. So as we look at the diverse genres of Scripture, we've got to look at prophecy. The basic feature, and I'm quoting the sources on the screen, and problem of prophetic interpretation is the promise fulfillment dynamic. This is what divides interpreters. When, where, and how prophecy is fulfilled helps us understand its meaning. And that's exactly what we're discussing tonight. Now, I'm going to go through a few reasons. I only have about 5 minutes left, so I won't be able to get to all of them, but I'm going to show you a few. I've already covered that. So now I've already covered this. There's the Hebrew text of Isaiah 53. Let's look a little bit about the surrounding context of this so we can understand how we got to Isaiah 52 and Isaiah 53. All right, let's look at this a little bit. It's cutting off here. That's my doing. Let me see. I may not be able to fix that. Maybe I can. Well, okay. It is what it is. It'll be cut off a little bit on the side there. Okay. First, starting at chapter 40 of Isaiah. And the reason why I start there is because when a person reads through the book of Isaiah, it's clear that after chapter 39, there's a marked difference. Yes, we understand there weren't chapters, but that's the way to understand in that part of the book. After 39, there's a transition. Now, I hold that it's still by the one author. I'm not saying it's different authors, but it's almost like part 1 and part 2. And so we're looking at the section here in context, and we see in 40 through 55, all the way back in 40, you see the servant's Lord being described. Then you see the motive for servanthood, which I'm going to say is grace, and I'm using a modified version of a layout. I can give the source. I have everything here to do the layout of the passage here. Then you see servants of the Lord, his witnesses being described, and the verses are on the screen. The Lord delivers his servants, the Lord's testimony. Then you see another transition, the means of servanthood, which is atonement, 49 through 55. Now let's break that down. You have anticipation of reconciliation in 49 through 52. And then now our passage that we come to tonight is revelation. That means God's disclosure of the means of reconciliation. How is this going to happen? How's this going to be brought about? Well, it's by the suffering servant. Now, there's an invitation to reconciliation. And because the other side is cut off, I'm not going to go all the way to chapter 66 because it's not showing up fully on the screen, but you can break down the book to the rest of 66. Now, let's do the layout of just our particular passage tonight here. The fourth servant song. The idea here is to get context and understand what are we looking at? How does it function within the larger book? This divine oracle, here's what happens. You have God evaluating and appraising his servant. You have the nation's lament in 1 through 9. You have the divine oracle given, where God promises to exalt his servant for doing his will. Then you have God speaking, verses 13 through 15. Israel speaking, and by Israel, we understand what we mean by that tonight. Or at least I do. God speaks, verses 10 through 12. And then you have Isaiah interjecting commentary. Now, when we return back, what we're going to do is show the theme of servanthood throughout Scripture. Actually, we can probably get to this now in our last little time here. It's multiple places in the Tanakh, this idea of servanthood, but not just in the Tanakh. And again, verses are on your screen so you can see, and this is not all the places. This is some of the places. It's also in the New Testament. Now, there it gets applied to suffering servant and servants as Jesus' followers to Jesus himself. And how much time do I got left, Marlon?
You have 13 seconds.
All right. I will end there and probably pick up here when we come back next time after I discuss what Judah says. Thank you for your ears and time and attention, everyone. And Isaiah 53 is about Jesus. Can't be about anybody else is the argument. And it's important because it means that the Messiah willingly provided payment for sinners. Yeshua, Jesus, died in place of others as a perfect substitute. And that's exactly what the text says. You heard it read and hopefully explained clearly in your hearing tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vocab, for that. All right, Judah, you're back in the seat. And I was, you go ahead. If you're sharing your screen again, Judah?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, share your screen.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Oh,
okay.
Good. Do you see it or no?
Yeah, we see it. We're good to go.
Okay. All right. So I want to show. I know that I'm an Israelite and a Christian. With the huge Christian demographic, it's fine. So you're going to hear some things you've never heard before, and that's okay. I will show that Christians employ what's termed replacement theology. You will notice that Vocab Malone said that you will find that in the book of Isaiah that it speaks about Isaiah, or what do you say? I'm sorry, bear with me. Hold on. He uses, he said, you will notice that he said, you will find this speaking about either Jesus or Isaiah, but he totally left the nation of Israel out as usual. Right? So this is a Christian playbook thing. Also want to state that you do not need to go outside the Torah and the prophets. I'm gonna just say the Torah, which includes the prophets and writings too, so you know. You do not need to go outside the Torah to justify or confirm the Torah. That'd be like me using the Quran to justify. Of course, Christians would never go for that. But, I want to say that I will show that Israel is the suffering servant of Yahweh. That's God's real name, not Yahweh, which is a king called Jehu. So when you hear me saying God's name, Yahweh, you can look up in Arabic. It's the same, Yahweh. On whom falls the sins of the Gentile nations on the basis that Israelites received that which the nations did not, the Torah and the 10 Commandments. This is Psalm 78 and 5. In other words, the Gentiles did not receive the Torah, which means the 10 Commandments and the teachings. The nation of Israel did. So since we have the Torah, right, and the Gentiles do not, their sins fall upon us, which is why the Israelites are on the bottom. And I'm going to show you that the Gentiles, they live in a state of prosperity at this present time. And it's not from the death of Jesus, it's from the death of the Israelites. Isaiah 53 verses 1 through 3, the nation of Israel's history and future. When you're reading Isaiah 53, you're reading about Israel's beginning, its death, and its resurrection. I know it sounds acutely familiar with Christianity. Well, you got to remember, which came first, the Torah and the prophets or the church in Christianity? Exactly, we came first. Who believed our message, and to whom has the arm of Yahweh been revealed? Christians never consider that it's the nations themselves as a collective during the birth, death, or expelling the exile of Israel, and its resurrecting or returning back to the land. Isaiah 52 verse 13. The servant of Yahweh is Israel, not Jesus. Behold, my servant will prosper. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as many were appalled at him, his appearance was disfigured beyond that of any man, his form marred beyond human likeness. And look, verse 15, he will sprinkle many nations. Kings will shut their mouths because of him, for they will see that which has not been told and understand that which has not been heard, right? So in other words, the nations are going to see a nation that they didn't regard as anything, as like a nation that's like afflicted and plagued by God. As you can see, it's the nations looking at Israel. Literally, the debate is over, as the servant's name has been declared and his testimony matched my testimony, which is Isaiah 8 verse 10, right? The Torah and the 10 Commandments. If they don't have this, they have no light. This is Isaiah 52 verse 4. This is to, like the vocab said, that you have to go back in context. Who's speaking here? So when you see Isaiah 53, he grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of the dry ground. He had no stately form or majesty to attract us, no beauty that we should desire him. It's the nations looking at Israel. As you can confirm this in the previous chapter, Isaiah 52 verse 4. On the day of your birth, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water for cleansing. You were not rubbed with salt or wrapped in clothes. No one cared enough for you to even do these things out of compassion for you, right? So it just shows you that what? Israel's birth was ignoble, right? So the nations did not see any reason to be like, oh, these are a special people. Deuteronomy 7 verse 7. Yahweh did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples. And the word used in what they call Hebrew is the word ma'at, which means insignificant, small, diminutive. Isaiah 53 verse 4. Israel, upon whom all the iniquities fall due to forsaking the Torah of Yahweh. Verse 4. Surely he took our infirmities. This is the nation speaking. Surely he took our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him, the nation of Israel, stricken by God, struck down and afflicted. Our infirmities, griefs, defilement, profanations, common, sick, wounds, making treaty, petitions, disease, pray for. This is the word used in Strong's 24:7, the word kala, but they use it as kalayana in Isaiah 53 verse 4. So it's the nation speaking. Why did the sins fall upon Israel? Psalm 78 verse 5. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established a Torah in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children. Deuteronomy 32 verse 46. When Moses had finished reciting all these words to Israel, he said to them, take to heart all these words that I testify among you today, so that you may command your children to carefully follow all the words of this Torah. For it is not an empty thing, for it is your life. The Torah is Israel's life. The other nations weren't given this life, not until they come up under Israel. Isaiah 53 verse 4. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. That punishment that brought us peace was upon him. And by his stripes we are healed. The nation of Israel is getting their backsides kicked in. The nation of Israel is the one that died. We're going to show you through scripture. Israel bears the profanations or the defilements or pollutions of the nations. Isaiah 43 verse 28. I have profaned the holy princes. I handed over Jacob to blasphemies. You're going to see the Israelites are Jesus. Strange, right? Because our story sounds like the Christian story. Yeah, well, let's keep it going. Notice it said the holy princes, not Jesus, princes in plural, the holy ones. The Gentile sins fall upon the Israelites. For the ruling nations to be up, Israel must be down. Psalm 73 is going to show you about the Gentile nations, in particular, the world ruling nations. And Israel says, for I've envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggle in their death. Their bodies are well fed. The psalmist, as Israel, envied the nations who are wicked and prosper without keeping the Torah, while the Israelites have to suffer. So this is clearly not talking about Jesus. This is talking about the nation of Israel. But the wicked, they prosper. Job 21:7. Why do the wicked live on, growing old and increasing in power? The answer, because Yahweh did not choose the nations for the Torah, but the Israelites. When we don't keep it, and we don't, we live in moral, spiritual, and intellectual decay. Psalm 37 verses 1 through 7. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be you envious or jealous against the workers of iniquity. Right? Why? Because the Gentiles, they're doing great. You can see here, you can see Donald Trump, and they're all here, and there's this Christian church, and it looks like money to me. Well, we live in the ghettos, and we get shot by police. As you can see here, there's a little old lady here giving her money to the Christian church. Isaiah 42, verse 22. But it is a looted and downtrodden people, not a single guy, people. This Isaiah 53, the book of Isaiah tells you who the servant is. Isaiah 53 verses 5 through 7. The nations speak on how their sins fall on Israel. Yahweh does not punish the Gentiles. Isaiah 53 and 6. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each one has turned his own way, and Yahweh has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth, and he was led like a lamb to a slaughter. Right? Psalm 73 verse 11. The wicked, who are the ruling Gentile nations, say, how can God know? Does the Most High have knowledge? Behold, these are the wicked, always carefree as they increase in their wealth. Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure. In innocence I've washed my hands. And this person's saying, yo, I kept the Torah, but like, wait a minute, like these guys ain't keeping the Torah. They're doing great. You know why? Because for their success depends on our failure, the Israelites' failure. Psalm 73 verse 13. Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure. In innocence I have washed my hands. For I am afflicted all day long and punished every morning. If I had said I will speak this way, then I would have betrayed your children. In other words, if Israelites knew why the wicked world ruling nations succeed or prosper, they would rebel. They would say, what need I have I to keep the Torah if the wicked, the Gentile nations don't have to keep it and they're succeeding? Isaiah 53 verse 9, the righteous remnant. This is what they never speak about, the righteous remnant in Israel, right? This is the righteous remnant comes during Ezekiel 38 and 39 times, right? And Gog and Magog, right? Zechariah 14. And they made his grave, talking about the nation of Israel, with the wicked. As we can clearly see, Israel gets kicked out of the land, which kicked out. We live in exile, and we're buried among Gentile people in their lands. Then they made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Who are the wicked? Equals the hammer of Yahweh to punish his people. Psalm 17 verses 12 through 13. Like a greedy lion for prey, like a young lion lurking in the ambush. Arise, O Yahweh, confront them, bring them to their knees. Deliver me from the wicked by your sword, which should be, who is your sword? From such men, O Yahweh, by your hand, from the men of the world whose portion is in this life. So clearly the wicked are the world ruling nations. These are the ones who are speaking in Isaiah 53. They can't believe that the people they used to oppress are suddenly going to be raised up and high. Isaiah 53 and 9, the righteous remnant, the generation that gets released with no deceit in his mouth. Zechariah 13 verse 9, the third I will put into a fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. Not him, them. They, not him, they will call on my name and I will answer them. And I will say, these are my people. And they will say, Yahweh is our God. Zechariah 10 verse 6, and I will strengthen the house of Judah and I will save the house of Joseph. And I will bring them again to place them. For I will have mercy upon them, and it shall be as though I had never cast them off. For I am Yahweh their God, and will hear them. Zechariah 8 and 8. And I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God in truth and in righteousness. Now, when this happens, there is an event that happens called Gog and Magog, right? But that generation didn't do any sin, but still has to go through this time called Gog and Magog when we return back to the land. Isaiah 53 and 10, the Israelites repent of their sin and eventually become a nation by Yahweh's name. Yet it was Yahweh's will to crush him and to cause him to suffer when his soul is made a guilt offering, which is Hashem, which means guilty, a confession of guilt. If Jesus is guilty, he cannot be a perfect sacrifice. He will see his offspring, he will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of Yahweh will prosper in his hand. Hosea 5 verse 15 will confirm Isaiah 53 and 10 about this servant who will put his soul up as an offering for guilt. Then I will return to my place until they admit their guilt, their Hashem, and seek my face. And their affliction, they will earnestly seek me. Hosea 6 verse 1 and 2. Israel is struck, dies, and rise again after 3 days, not Jesus. Come, let us return to Yahweh, for he has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has wounded us, but he will bind up our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us, not Jesus. On the third day, he will raise us, not Jesus, that we may live in his presence. So again, they take you out, put Jesus in. It's called replacement theology. The Torah tells you this would happen in a book of Deuteronomy. Israelites are the stricken ones Israelites are stricken sons of Yahweh who take on the sins of the world. We just read it. Watch this. Ezekiel 37 verse 10 and 11. Israel is the one that died, not Jesus. We are Jesus, the suffering servant, the dying, resurrecting son of Yahweh. So I prophesied, this is Ezekiel 37, verse 10 and 11. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath entered them, and they came to life and stood on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, Son of man, These are the bones of the whole house of Israel. Look, they, not Jesus, are saying, not him, our bones are dried up, and not him, our hope has perished. We, not I or him, we are cut off. Isaiah 53 verse 11 will confirm that Israel is the suffering servant that comes back to life. After the anguish of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Why? Because he was given the Torah. Israelites are the stricken sons of Yahweh who take on the sins of the world. We just read it. Watch this, Isaiah 2:2. All nations will stream to the Israelites instead of despising them. In the last days, the mountain of the temple of Yahweh will be established as the chief of the mountains. It will be raised above the hills, and all nations, not all nations stream into Christianity, all nations will stream to the Israelites when we are in the kingdom. All nations will stream to it. Isaiah 57 verse 17. For the iniquity of his covetousness, I was angry and I struck him. Him who? Israel. I hid and was angry. This ain't talking about Jesus. He went on backsliding in the way of his heart. I have seen their ways, but I will heal them. I will guide them and restore comfort to Israel's mourners. Israel's mourners? Someone's mourning Israel. Why would they mourn Israel? Because he was struck. He died. We're in exile. Isaiah 53 verse 12. The righteous remnant will blossom in the land and increase and teach the world the Torah. Therefore, I will allot him a portion with the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he has poured out his life unto death and was numbered among the transgressors, the Gentiles. Yet he bore the sin of many and made intercession for transgressors. You saw that Israel was born, sinned, and died, and was resurrected. And a small remnant will be called the people of Yahweh. We just read this in Zechariah. All right. Sorry. You know what? I'm going to stop right there. Just to show that, yes, it is Israel that was born ignoble, died, and was, exiled, and shall be returned back again, quote unquote, resurrected, and that the Christian story is based off the life, death of Israel, or Christian. I'm sorry. Yeah. With that, I'm out. Shalom. Let me stop sharing.
All right, Coach Judah, that was the 1 minute mark, so you have 30 seconds. So you good with that?
I'll just stop. Yes. Yeah. We're good. 30 seconds. Yeah, so as you all see that you can say, well, hey, that Christian story sounds very, very familiar with the Israelite story, and this is probably something you'd never heard before. But taking consideration what the Scripture says, we don't need to go into the New Testament. The book of Isaiah and the prophets and the Torah tell you who the suffering servant of Yahweh is. It's the nation of Israel. And with that, all praises to Yahweh God in His holy name, and shout out to the Israelites. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that opening. All right, Vocab, you're back up in the seat, and you have 10 minutes this round. All right. So I'll start your time as soon as you begin to speak.
Sure. 10 minutes. And we're starting now.
All right. I want to read a quote that is important. It sets everything in context here to help us to understand about who this suffering servant is in this song we are reading. Here's the quote from the book on the screen. Within Isaiah 40 through 48, there's no doubt that Israel is the servant of the Lord. So notice Judah mistakenly said I didn't call Israel the servant of the Lord, yet I literally have screens prepared to do that exact thing. And I mentioned it in my opening statement. I guess you just didn't hear. That's okay. Like Adam, Israel was created and formed to serve the Lord and mediating God's presence to the nations. So Judah did bring that up, and that's not entirely wrong as far as what Israel was supposed to do. But did she? In fulfillment of God's covenant promises to Abraham, they were to be a blessing to the nations. With the descent of David on their throne, Israel the servant was to magnify the incomparable name of Yahweh as the one true God who both creates and redeems. Yet they failed spectacularly, becoming almost indistinguishable from the idolatrous nations. What would Yahweh do? Here's the answer. The answer is raise up a new servant. And that's the branch. And in a second, I'm going to take off screen share. I'm going to read from Isaiah 11 and show you that's who it's talking about. Now, there's a great debate, probably the best debate on this subject, between Rabbi Shmuley Botiek and Michael Brown. And they go over some amazing points. I encourage you to watch this. It happened back in 2007. It's on YouTube. A couple points I want to bring out that Dr. Brown brought out. In Isaiah 40 through 15, you see the word servant, Ibed, 17 times. It is sometimes collectively, meaning Israel. I mean, again, this is in my notes. I had this. Sometimes it clearly is Israel just collectively. Sometimes it's an individual versus on the screen. Sometimes it's debated about what it is, such as Isaiah 42:1, no doubt about that. But overall, the collective references stop by 48:20. And by the time you get to 52:13, you clearly have a righteous individual in mind. Now, I want to show you something from Isaiah 11, which is very important, because remember that branch language, that kind of plant language, that root language that's used in Isaiah 52 and 53? Well, let's see what it's referring to. It's the righteous reign of the branch in Isaiah 11, his own book. Here it goes. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse. So this is not all Israel, because not all Israel is Judah, and not all Israel is in the line of Jesse. This is someone in particular. This is who it's referring to. And a branch from his roots shall bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. That sounds like the anointed one. When you talk about a spirit when you talk about the Spirit of the Lord resting upon one, that's anointed one language. That's Mashiach language. The spirit of wisdom and understanding. Notice the servant of the Lord acts wisely. Remember how our passage began? The spirit of knowledge. Skip one. The spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, and his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity the meek of the earth. Now that's important, because Israel is accused of doing the opposite thing, and in fact of being blind and deaf herself. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's what this person's going to do? This sounds like godlike activity. Now look at this. Look at this. This is Isaiah 11 describing this person. With the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. That's a beautiful thing. And then you get into really strange language when you start getting into verse 6 that somehow ties into this righteous branch, because it describes his reign. And you have a peaceful kingdom there. Now, that goes beyond sort of the discussion we're having here today, but I just want to bring that out, because that is really a way to make sure you understand what Isaiah is doing when he uses the branch language there. It's specific to the Messiah. Now, Isaiah 53 is not about the nation of Israel. Let me try to. There we go. Okay, there we go. I got the right thing now. And I want to show a couple reasons why. One is, when you look at the ancient rabbinical opinion, that was not their opinion. Not until the 10th century with Rashi did we have that becoming the predominant opinion of people that Judah would say are his ancestors. So their opinion should matter, shouldn't it? Now, it's not that the opinion that it was collectively Israel or righteous remnant never existed, but as far as the prominence and almost essentially being an official interpretation, it wasn't until the 10th century with Rashi. Remember, as I brought up in the beginning, you have distinctive pronouns. Pay attention to the pronouns in the passage we're talking about. We, us, are versus he, him, his. You have a singular personality. He dies for my people. How can he die for my people if it's my people dying? He's voluntarily, willingly, silently suffering. That doesn't sound like the affliction of Israel, does it, people? No, it doesn't. He's an innocent sufferer. Was Israel innocent? In a second here, I'm going to show you a verse that's going to show the answer to that is no. It's a substitutionary death. Now, why would the Gentiles get to have their sins paid for when they're the ones inflicting Israel? That doesn't make sense. Healing and justification he brings. And remember, Israel survives, doesn't die, despite Judah's attempt to use Hosea 6 in that way. On his screen, it said Hosea 16, but everyone should know it is Hosea 6. Resurrection is needed. Now, I want to show you something here briefly again. And my screen here, let me see if it'll show it. If I just switch this just a second, I'm switching over to... How does this work? Am I going to be able to do it? I'm going to have to read this to you, because I'm having trouble bringing this other thing, because it's from a different source. It's from my Bible app here. But it's from Ezekiel 39. I encourage everyone to look to Ezekiel 39. And I'm going to read Ezekiel 39 to you, starting in verse 22. And what this is going to prove definitively, and, I don't like to do this, but I could. But Judah's my friend, so I won't. But I could say, after I read this, the debate is over. But I won't do that. Here's Ezekiel 39. Listen to what it says, starting in verse 22. The house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God from that day forward. Now listen to this. That's what Israel's going to know. What are the nations going to know? Verse 23. This is Ezekiel 39. And the nations shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they dealt so treacherously with me that I hid my face from them and gave them into the hand of their adversaries. and they all fell by the sword. I dealt with them according to their uncleanness and their transgressions and hid my face from them. They're not paying for the sins of the nations. They are paying for their own sins. This is definitive, people. Continuing on to show you that Israel is not the suffering servant in this passage we're looking at. I'm not saying Israel's never referred to as a suffering servant in Isaiah, because that's a foolish position, but she fails. And so the Lord raises up a new servant out of Jesse's line. 53:8, for the transgressions of my people he was stricken. This is not a plurality or a collective noun. Let me ask you a question. What people was Isaiah a part of? If the people of Israel was the servant of the Lord here, who would be my people? You get this first person plural pronoun 10 times in verses 4 through 6. It is not the nation. Even the rabbis knew this until the 10th century when they got convinced otherwise. Maimonides, Rabbi Crispin, they all thought it was wrong to apply Isaiah 53 to Israel. And you can get this in a book that is available publicly, 1887, because it's out of copyright. The sources on the bottom, the Messianic Prophecies, very scholarly book, very good book. And the father of modern Hebrew, Gessensis, look what he says. It was only the latter Jews who abandoned this messianic interpretation, no doubt in consequence of their controversies with the Christians. And there are some rabbis who have come forward since then and admitted it. Now, I'm going to read from a book by Dr. Louis Goldberg called God, Torah, and Messiah. And he raises a great point in relationship to this idea about Israel being the one described in this passage. Quote, the plain sense of the biblical text, where sufferings and glories are ascribed to one and the same person, suppose it is granted that the one mentioned in 53:10 is the nation. Sacrifices, however, must be perfect, without spot or blemish. Yet the same prophet who is supposed to be describing the suffering of the nation confesses that Israel is sick. Well, where does that happen at? Is that correct? Is that accurate? Is he just saying that? I mean, come on now. Well, Isaiah 1:6. Can I look at you for a second and read this? I would like to do that if I could. Here we go. Isaiah 1:6 says this, from the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but bruises and sores and raw wounds. They are not pressed out or bound up or softened with oil. Your country lies desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. And it goes on and on. It's literally describing Israel as being sick. Now, how is Israel going to heal when it's the one who needs the healing? This is important because Israel not healing herself. She's blind. Isaiah 42:19. Isaiah 42:6-7. Compare those. How's she going to open the eyes when she herself is blind? She's deaf, according to 42:20, yet she's called to proclaim. She's in prison, unresponsive, unjust, and unrebellious. She's not the servant in this passage. All right.
All right.
Is that the end?
That's it.
Hey,
Thank you,
Google, turn
Vocab. Thank you, Vocab, for that. All right, Judah, you're back in the seat once again, man. And you have 10 minutes, and I will start your time as soon as you begin to speak. Think you may be muted, Judah. Think you may be muted.
I'm sorry, mic check.
Yep, you're loud and clear.
Okay, I was trying to share the screen if you guys can see it.
Yes, we can. We got you.
All right, so I jotted down Vocab's rebuttals, but due to the shortness of time, I'm going to continue on with my slides. We do have a Q&A, so don't worry. Again, you guys have seen the replacement theology in full effect tonight. You clearly seen that Vocab also has capitulated and acquiesced to my position that it is Israel, that we are the suffering servant. He has acquiesced to and agreed to as well. Isaiah 44 verse 1. But now listen, O Jacob, my servant Israel, whom I have chosen, not Jesus. This is the word of Yahweh your maker, who formed you from the womb and who will help you. Do not be afraid, O Jacob, my servant, Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. Now, clearly, Vocab should make it seem like the Most High is totally just got rid of Israel forever. And we clearly see that's not the case. It's not. Like, this is in the future. This isn't happening now. So whatever's going on now is going to go away. Isaiah 43 verse 10, you are my witnesses, declares Yahweh. My witnesses, plural, and my servant, singular, whom I have chosen, so that you may consider and believe me and understand that I am he, and before me no God was formed, and after me none will come. Yes, I am Yahweh, and there is no Savior besides me. As much as Christians like to insert Jesus in there, clearly Yahweh said, well, there's no Savior besides me, and my name is Yahweh, not Jesus. Right? And you are my witnesses, plural, not singular. Isaiah 41 verse 8, but you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend. Clearly, there's no, come on. We got to stop the replacement theology. Israel, the suffering servant, will make many righteous. Because Vocab Malone tried to make it, take Israel out, put Jesus in. Isaiah 51 verse 7, listen to me, you who know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my Torah. Fear not the reproach of man, nor be dismayed at their revilings, because they'll say, the Torah's done away with. We have a new. And by the way, there's no Jesse or root of Jesse in Isaiah 53. Jeremiah 31 verse 34. But this shall be the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel, not Jesus. After those days, says Yahweh, I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. Not my only begotten son, my people. Isaiah 43 verse 28, therefore I have profaned the princes of the sanctuary and have given Jacob to the curse and Israel to blasphemy. How is that? Because we're the people, and as you see Vocab Malone try to get me to, with the rabbis or whatever, those are not Israelites. Those guys practice a religion called Judaism, which is not in the Torah and prophets either. Right? So we can't really rely on them. They're not the people. They're not going through what the Torah is saying the Israelites are going through. We're going through it. When you hear the crazy words and names being called, and the other people are replacing you, and you are no longer relevant and not important to God, that's blasphemy, because it clearly says here that the Most High is going to turn his face to us once again. Israel pays for the Gentiles the wicked sins and will pray for them. Isaiah 53 verse 12, for he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. How? The Torah was given to Israel only. Psalm 78 verse 5, he decreed statutes for Jacob and established the Torah in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children. That the Gentiles' pollutions fall upon Israel because of this fact, especially the world ruling empires, which are called the wicked, right? Psalm 109 verse 2 and 4, for wicked and deceitful mouths are opened against me, speaking against me with a lying tongue. They surround me with hateful words and attack me without cause. In return for my love, they accuse me, but I am a man of prayer. They repay me evil for good and hatred for my love. Everyone knows the Israelites everywhere are the most kind and gentle people to everybody else but themselves. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone. We prayed for the people that hanged us for trees. Shoot, we see police shooting people and the mothers forgiving them. Why? Because we are always praying for people, but not ourselves, right? We have thoroughly concluded that Israel is a servant of Isaiah 53. He is the Jesus, Son of God. Hosea 14 and 10. Who is wise and who will understand these things? Who is understanding and will know them? For the ways of Yahweh are straight, and the righteous will walk in them, and the sinners will stumble. If you're confused as to when Yahweh says Israel, 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 and in your mind you think that it says Jesus, you're going to stumble on the commandments. You're going to stumble in the book of life, Yahweh. Hosea 6 verse 1. Come, let us return to Yahweh. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds. And after 2 days, he will revive us on the third day. He will raise us up that we may live in his sight. He will raise us up. You mean like my servant should be lifted up? He should be very lofty? Yeah. It's talking about Israel, not Jesus. Of course, Vocab Malone's not going to address that. He's my friend, but he's not going to address that. Isaiah 42 verse 24. For they would not walk in his ways. This is Israelites. Neither were obedient to his Torah. They were enveloped in flames, but they still refuse to understand. So you clearly see here, whether you say these guys are Christians or not, you clearly see here a cross burning. Why? Because you are the Jesus. That's why you're blasphemed. You're the Holy Prince. They have you and they set you on fire. Did they not put these in your yard? And what is this telling you? You're Jesus. You're the one that was hanging from the trees. Is anyone going to deny that? You were hanging from the trees and they were burning crosses. You're Jesus. The scriptures told you. Now, of course, you go to the New Testament, it's not going to tell you that. But in the Torah and prophets, your heritage, you'll see. Isaiah 42 verse 18. Who is as blind as my servant? Who is blind but my servant, or is deaf like the messenger who I'm sending? Who is blind like my covenant partner? It's actually the mashal. or blind like the servant of Yahweh. The Israelite does not even consider that they're the suffering servant because he's blind and deaf. The same servant in chapter 53 is the same servant throughout the book of Isaiah, Israel. Israel is also that Jesus Christ of the Gentiles. I proved it through this scripture. Israel is the only one named to die and come back to life in 3 days. That's Hosea 6 verse 1. Israel's the one told, not Jesus Christ. Israelites, from stricken ones to the rulers of the earth. Isaiah 60 verse 10. For foreigners will rebuild your walls, and their kings, you know those nations speaking in Isaiah 53, their kings will serve you. Although I struck you, not Jesus, in anger, yet in favor I will show you mercy. And that does not mean going through Christianity to find Jesus. It means you have to keep the Torah where you will find Yahweh and he will show you mercy. Right? Oh, okay. And with that, oh, wait. How much time do I have left? I'm sorry.
Yeah, about 3 minutes left.
Cool. Okay. That's all I need. Thank you very, very much. Can you see my screen, please? Or can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. Vocab Malone, he keeps refraining to speak about the Isaiah 53 as a timeline of Israel's life or birth, life, death, and resurrection, or what do you call it? Recollection or gathering back to the land. This is Zechariah chapter 13, verse 9. This third, matter of fact, I'm sorry. Let me back this up one verse back. All right, sorry. Oh, come on. This is Zechariah verse 13, Zechariah 13 and 8. In the whole land declares Yahweh, 2/3 will be struck down and perish, yet 1/3 will be left. Wait a minute. This is when Israel returns back to the land, right? When Israel returns back to the land, the Most High is going to do one more sifting and get rid of the 2/3, and there's going to be 1/3 left. This third I will put into fire, and I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them, and I will say, they are my people, and they will say, Yahweh is our God. No, this is in the land. This is the righteous remnant. This is one that will blossom and bloom. Right? This is the he shall see his seed and be satisfied and divide the portions with the mighty. And I think it's Isaiah 53 verse 10. This is talking about Israel. Real quick, let me just get this real quick. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. I should have had this prepared. Bear with me. 45, 40. I'm sorry. How much time I have? I might just stop here.
Yeah, you have 1 minute left.
All right. Let me just stop there. All right. Let me get off of this. Okay. So just to get off of that, as you clearly see again, that it is Israel is the servant of Yahweh. He's the one that lived, ignoble, died, and will be resurrected or regathered back to the land. When we are outside the land, we are known as dead people. You can find this in Ezekiel chapter 37, the valley of dry bones. With that, all praises to Yahweh God, and I'm going to stop right there.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for that. And so now we're going to transition to our cross-examination. This will be a total of 20 minutes, 10 minutes each for each of you to lead with questions. And in that, you guys have 90 seconds to respond to those questions. Before we start, audience, let's get some questions in, because right after the cross X, we're going to have an 8-minute round 3, and then we're going to have a 20-minute question Q&A. And so you guys get those questions in, and we're going to tackle that. With that said, Vocab, you have 10 minutes. Do you guys want to take a break real quick, or you guys want to go right into it? Are you guys good?
I don't need to take a break.
What was that, Judah? All right, you good to go?
Let's go.
All right. You guys have the floor, and Vocab, you have it for 10 minutes, and I'll start your time as soon as you ask your first question.
All right, sure. Judah, Ezekiel 39, 23 to 24 says that Israel went into captivity for her iniquity and transgressions, for hers. So why do you say that she's suffering for Gentiles' iniquity and transgressions?
Because Israel was given the Torah and the Gentiles weren't.
That's true, and yet she transgressed the Torah, didn't she?
Not everyone.
Ezekiel 39 says Israel went into captivity for her iniquity.
Okay, I understand that. Yes, as a whole, but not everybody transgressed.
Well, this says Israel went into captivity. Even the prophet Isaiah identified himself as a man of unclean lips, didn't he?
Yes.
Right. So not even the supposed righteous of Israel can be identified as without blemish. Can they?
About as much as Jesus getting whipped, yeah.
That doesn't make sense, but let's move on a similar note to that. Isaiah 1:6 describes Israel as sick. Isaiah 42:19 says Israel is blind. Isaiah 42:20 says Israel is deaf. Isaiah 42:22 says she's imprisoned. 42:25 she's unresponsive. She's described multiple places as unjust. She's described in 51 as rebellious. So Israel clearly is not the servant, because a servant is the opposite of these things, and he's healing the sick. He's hearing the voice of the Lord. He's proclaiming, he's liberating. So why do you say it's Israel and Israel is sick and all these other things I just listed just now in the debate? How can this be Israel in 52 and 53?
Okay, so again, Isaiah 53 is talking about a birth, a life, death, and a restoration of Israel, not talking about a man. And Israel was given the Torah, which the Gentiles were not. So the fact that the Gentiles was not given the Torah, which could atone for their sins, and Israel was, that means that their sins automatically fall upon Israel, because they don't have anything to necessarily repent by. That's why in the later days they have to come up under Israel to serve Yahweh.
So Judah, how are you answering the question about Israel being sick, deaf, blind, imprisoned, unresponsive by your answer? With all due respect, you just danced right around the question. You didn't deal with anything about how the sick is supposed to heal the sick.
Okay, again, so the answer to that is you're missing the point of Isaiah 53. That is a timeline. I know you want to put it just in one place, and it's Isaiah 53 is talking about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story of Israel. That's how.
Okay. Few reasons why that doesn't make sense, but let's go to 53:2 specifically. It says he grew up before him like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. Now, that's what Isaiah 53:2 says. Now, Isaiah 11, so we're in the same book now, says this: there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his root shall bear fruit. So why aren't you identifying Isaiah 53:2 with the righteous branch of Isaiah 11:1? Why are you saying it has nothing to do with the line of Jesse?
Because the line of Jesse is never mentioned in Isaiah 53. You added that in there.
Okay. We're looking at the whole book of Isaiah. I'm not going to another book. I'm going earlier in the same book. So in Isaiah 53:2, it says he grew up before him like a young plant. Keep that in mind. Isaiah 11:1 says there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse. Then Isaiah 53:2, the next line says, and like a root out of dry ground. Isaiah 11:1, the next part says, and a branch from his root shall bear fruit. You're not seeing that Isaiah 53:2 is identifying the servant as the righteous branch, one and the same. That's not clear to you? You think I'm adding it?
No, yes, you definitely added that. The word is a sapling, like a young tender branch. It's a sapling, not an actual like a Natzarah, which is a branch, a monarchy. So yes, you did kind of add that in there. I'm sorry, what was part of your second question?
Just that he's clearly developing a theme of the branch, and this is why it makes it actually rather easy to identify Isaiah 53 as a messianic passage. Do you believe that Isaiah 53 is even a messianic passage at all?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's unfortunate for very many reasons. Now, I want to show you something from just Isaiah 53:5 alone. Isaiah 53:5. If you're able to look at it in real quick, I'm not going to ask you to read it. I just want to make sure you're there so you can compare the pronouns I'm going to ask you about in a second. And same thing for the audience if you're able to look at it. So here we are, Isaiah 53:5. And I'm going to read these various comparisons from this, because this shows that the suffering servant is suffering in our place. So I'm actually going to show the screen for this if I could. Okay, I know you're not going to be able to see it all because it's the way it is, but on the left it says he is pierced, and then on the right from the same verse it says for our transgression. So notice the pronouns, Judah. He, are. On the left side, he is crushed. That's daka. For our iniquities, he, are. Upon him, that's him. Personal pronoun, masculine. The chastisement of our peace. Him, are. His wounds, his. On the other side, corresponding, we are healed, Rapha. His, we. Now, this is an individual being contraposed or juxtaposed with a collective noun. How then can it be Israel when you have he, are, him, are, his, we? How is it Israel? Because Israel is clearly the are and the we in the passage. Is she not? Or if you want to use the phrase God's people. You don't see Isaiah 53:5, the contrast between the collective and individual pronouns there. Well, how do you interpret this then?
Well, I'll interpret it just like in the I think it's like Isaiah 42. It speaks of you are my. I'm sorry. Isaiah 42. I think it's like you are my witnesses, plural, and then it says my servant, singular. To answer your question, so when it's talking about us, is referring to us individually as like a woman, or as a young man, or as a man, or as a profane prince, and as a single person talking about us all.
So you believe that it should be translated or understood like this, Judah? We are pierced for our transgressions. We are crushed for our iniquities. Upon us is the chastisement of our peace. Our wounds we are healed. You think that's what it's actually saying?
No, that's the Gentiles talking.
But that's
52 shows you.
But that's
But I
literally
know,
the
but
way
you're-
you're trying to interpret Isaiah 53:5 is what I just said. You just seems like you didn't like it when you heard it. But tell me where I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong, because in Isaiah 52, it starts talking about the Most High giving redemption and sight of the nations. Then the nations begin to speak in Isaiah 53. They can't believe, like, wait a minute, these people? Like, we thought these people were stricken by God. That's why they're on the bottom. And
Okay.
their success depends on our failure. That's what you're making it about a single, and the book of Isaiah keeps talking about Israel.
So you're making it that it's Israel's sufferings. Isaiah 53:9 says that the sufferer who suffers here does so voluntarily, willingly, and silently. When did Israel suffer voluntarily, willingly, and silently, Judah?
And the generations that had to pay for it, like, I'll give you an example. When we arrived in America, we weren't necessarily like doing anything necessarily wrong. We didn't know whether to keep the Torah or whatever we were doing when we got here. But yet and still, we were still, what was going on in the early history in America. So you can say, like, well, wait a minute, they didn't do anything wrong. Why did that happen to them?
Okay, if you're going to make the correlation there between, I thought you were done. Between Black Americans and Israelites, willing, these people were kidnapped voluntarily. They didn't say, I want to go to America as a slave. Silently. I mean, I think I remember a couple slave rebellions, and I think I even remember spiritual songs that talked about freedom. I don't know what you are talking about, frankly, to try to say that the sufferer here is Israel, who's willingly, voluntarily, silently suffering. And the last thing is this. If the Gentiles are the ones punishing Israel in the passage, how is it fair or just that their sins are paid for by them being the ones who are punishing Israel? How is that righteous?
Can you ask your question one more time? The last part.
If the Gentiles are the ones punishing Israel, they're the ones doing these actions to Israel as the collective suffering servant. How is it righteous of God to say, and by the Gentiles punishing you, they get their sins paid for?
That's how it works. The Most High said, I use the wicked as my hammer. Surely you won't disagree with that. And he uses his hammer to what? His instruction rod to what? Chastise his people.
Great point.
So he uses the Gentiles to chastise
Assyria,
his people.
Babylon, Persia, did they have their sins paid for, or were they destroyed as empires?
All Gentile nations, their sins fall not paid for, their sins fall upon Israel. So we get polluted.
Okay.
All right. That's time. All right, Judah, you're up next for your 10-minute cross-ex vocab, and I'll start your time. You begin to ask your first question.
All right. According to Ezekiel 44:3, this is the royal Messiah in the future in the kingdom. It says, the prince himself is the only one who may sit inside the gateway to eat in the presence of Yahweh. He is to enter by the way of the porch of the gateway and go out the same way. Does in Ezekiel 44 verse 3 and 4, the royal Messiah is eating food put together by the Levites. If Jesus is the Messiah, why is he eating human food?
Jesus,
Or I'm sorry, if he's God. My bad. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. If Jesus is God, why is he eating human food in Ezekiel 44 verse 4?
Interesting question. Of course, the top of the debate's not is Jesus God, but I'll gladly answer it nonetheless. In the scripture themselves, Jesus is portrayed as eating food. In fact, even after his resurrection, he eats some fish. So Jesus was always eating. In fact, he was eating so much, they said, hey, this Son of Man guy is a party animal, hanging out with sinners and getting drunk and eating. Now, I'm not saying he was doing that, but that's what he's accused of. And the reason why, Judah, is because you're right, he's God, but he's not only God. He's not mere man, but he's also not anything different than a human would be who's a sinless human, meaning he subjected himself to the fact of being human, the realities that come along with it, including sleep. You see Jesus sleeping in a boat because he needed to sleep, because he was tired, because he had a human body that he willingly took on, according to Philippians 2. So Jesus definitely ate food. Nothing wrong with that. It's not a sin.
That wasn't the question, sir. But let me rephrase the question. Why is Jesus eating food prepared by Levitical priest if he's the perfect sacrifice? Maybe I should have started off with that. In Ezekiel 44, verse 5.
So I'm having trouble understanding.
No, that's not him, but you're saying it's him. So see, why is he eating food prepared by Levitical priest if he's the perfect sacrifice? What would he need to do that for?
I'm not understanding the significance of the problem. So you got to help me out. I thought I answered the question, but you're saying I didn't.
No, you didn't. You're saying that Jesus was the perfect sacrifice and that Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus. So I'm asking you, why is Jesus, according to you, who's supposed to be the royal Messiah, why is he here in the future eating sacrifices prepared by Levitic priest in Ezekiel 44 and 5?
Well, I mean, I'd have to look at this entire passage. It's not like I studied in depth Ezekiel 44 before the debate on Isaiah 53. But nonetheless, you have the angel of the Lord, even in the Old Testament, where there's a theophany that apparently eats meals with people as well. And so this is not a problem for God when he takes on an embodied form, even in the Old Testament, which is a temporary activity with the angel of the Lord, such as the situation with Abraham, I believe, and then the situation with, I think, Samson's parents or something like that. So it's not problem. So I'm not registering the problem here in this situation. So I just don't see how it's a problem for the incarnation. So I don't know really what else to say, because even during Jesus's lifetime, you're talking about eating food. Jesus went to temple and took part in the Day of Atonement and everything else. He was baptized by John the Baptist. Why? He had to fully, willingly submit to the law of Moses to perfectly keep it for us who couldn't perfectly keep it. And there's no problem with that. In fact, that's part of his mission, is to do that exact thing. Why? Because Israel failed at it, showing she's not the suffering servant.
All right, you definitely are not answering my question. If Jesus is God and a perfect sacrifice, he wouldn't be partaking of sin offerings. So let me go with my second question, because you're not going to answer it. Your great dance moves, though. Ezekiel 45 and 22. Because remember, he said that he's a perfect sacrifice according to Hebrews 10 and 10. And it should be upon that day that the prince, who's the royal Messiah, shall prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bullock for a sin offering. 7 days of the feast shall he prepare a burnt offering to Yahweh. So Ezekiel 45 and 22 is saying that the royal Messiah is eating a sin offering for himself. Why is Jesus eating a sin offering? Is he a sinner?
No, but he is identified with sinners. So as I mentioned in our previous answer, and this is why it is relevant, Jesus would have partaken in the Day of Atonement. Jesus would have partaken in Passover. We even have examples of that, of course, in Scripture. All the festivals of Israel, whatever's on the calendar, Jesus is faithfully and perfectly keeping despite he himself not having any sin. And by the way, Jesus is described multiple times in the gospel as being sinless, and even his enemies recognizing that. And ironically enough, the suffering servant of Isaiah 53 is also described as one who had done no violence, no deceit was found in his mouth. And so this is an identification of the righteous with the wicked, and this is part of God's mercy and grace. So it's just part of how God operates. This is what he does. Otherwise, we would all be in really big trouble, Judah.
So Jesus is a sinner.
Jesus took on sin. 2 Corinthians 5:21, he became sin.
Sir, this is a future prophecy. So Jesus is going to come back as a sinner.
I definitely didn't say that.
Well, okay, let's read it again.
So Jesus is not a sinner. He's not going to come back as a sinner. But just like the scapegoat.
Hold on. Vocab, hold on. Hold on. Ezekiel 44, verse 3. It is for the prince. He is the leader. So he will sit with them to eat the food before Yahweh. He shall come in by the way of the hall of the eastern gate, and by that way shall he depart. Why is your God coming in to eat to my God, and he's subservient to the Levites, and he's eating a sin offering? Why is he doing that? And why does he have to make sin offerings for himself in the future, not in the past, in the future? Remember, you said that he's God.
Yes. Again, not the topic of debate, but I'll be glad to answer it. It must be remembered that some of the things you're bringing up have been dealt with in the New Testament by Jesus himself. And I'll explain what I mean by that. In John 5, when they're like, hey, why are you healing people on the Sabbath? He's like, hey, the priests, they're doing their thing all the time. And one greater than the priest, one greater than the temple is here. Jesus claimed to be better and more important than the priest and the temple itself in multiple places, sometimes implication, sometimes explicitly. Jesus also is greater than Moses. He says one greater than Moses is here. So the whole structure, the most important people, the most important elements of the Old Testament, as significant and important as they were, Jesus is saying, I am the fulfillment of those things. So Jesus is greater than the temple you're talking about, and he's greater than all the sacrifices. He's greater than them all. That's why the veil was ripped.
Okay, so we're not going to get an answer as to why, according to him, this is Jesus. We know that King David's coming back. So Jesus is going to come back a sinner. He won't answer that. And he's making sin offerings, which he's supposed to be a sacrifice. So this goes back to Isaiah 53. If he's a sacrifice, why is he eating food, a portion for sinners? Even for himself?
I'm not saying Jesus is doing those things, brother.
No, I am. But you're saying that he's the Messiah, so he must. Okay, is Jesus going to rule as King of Israel?
He's the king of the earth. You can call it king of Israel if you want, but you got to include everybody else.
Is Jesus going to sit on the throne of David?
Yeah, it depends if you're trying to mean that literal, but basically he's also one who's greater than David. He's described in the scripture as the greater David. So yes, but he's the one who has the everlasting kingdom. David did not have an everlasting kingdom. Jesus will.
Okay, so is Jesus, because in Jeremiah 33, it says there will be a monarchy of Levites and Davidic kings. So is Jesus going to have human relations with women, being that he's your God?
The only human relations with women Jesus will have is paying for their sin by dying on the cross for them. And that includes Mary, to all you Catholics out there.
So for the record, Jesus is not going to carry on the dynasty.
Jesus is the dynasty. He's definitely going to carry it on.
So there's a whole bunch of Jesuses. So there are many Jesuses then.
Well, in a manner of speaking, remember this text we're reading, Isaiah 53 says he's going to see his offspring. His offspring is a spiritual seed. I hope I'm one of them. So there's a sense in which there's many Jesuses. We're called Christians for a reason.
Okay, last question. So you're not answering anything. Can you show me in the Torah and prophets where Jesus Christ's name is mentioned? If you can do that, do you win the debate? I don't have anything more to say. I just want to see the word Jesus, 2 words, Jesus Christ in the Torah and prophets.
Well, that would be mighty strange to find 2 English words in a Hebrew document, don't you think? I think so. So we're not going to find that.
Okay, Yahushua HaMashiach, can you find that in the Torah and the prophets?
Well, you do see, of course, one spoken of who's a deliverer. And, of course, you and I both know that's what Joshua or Jesus means. Yahweh delivers. And that is what the people who first saw Jesus in Luke, that's exactly what they said about him. Yahweh's delivering his people. And the Jews
So
knew this. That's why
Joshua
there
was-
was a lot of people naming their kids Jesus at the time, huh?
Wait, hold on, man. You're milking my time. So Joshua was the Messiah.
No, but his name does mean Yahweh will deliver or save. If you feel I milk your time, you can ask another question if it's okay with Marlon. Go ahead.
No, you milk my time. That's okay. It's fine.
No,
Everybody
I'm
got
saying
the
you can
picture.
go if you feel that's the case. I don't want you to feel cheated. I want you to go if you got another question.
No, you're not going to answer them, so it's all good. It's fine.
I'll do
We're
my
not gonna
best because,
No,
frankly,
you're just gonna-
Judah, I'll do
no,
my
you're
best. But
going-
honestly, your questions seem like they literally have nothing to do with Isaiah 53. But if you want to ask another one, I'll definitely allow it because I want to be fair.
Okay. All right. Just okay. According in the future, because he already said that Jesus is not going to perpetuate this confused counsel. Just one more time. In the future, the Messiah is making a sin offering underneath the Levites. Why is Jesus, who's supposed to be God, eating sin offering or making a sin offering for himself if he's God? Why would your God sin?
Okay, I think I'm trying to understand what you're saying. A few things about this. Jesus, none of that's happening in the future. I'm not one of the Christians who believes there's going to be a third temple built and there's reestablishment and there's sacrifices. All that's done away with forever. And Hebrews is the best place for us to go to that. In Hebrews, it talks about he's the high priest who sits down once and for all. His work is done is what that means. And it's fascinating that it's almost like Yahweh forced the hands of those who practice Judaism by having the temple be destroyed in 70 AD, meaning you can't go back to those temple sacrifices. It's not even an option if you wanted to these days. And so people just say, well, I just asked God for forgiveness, but that's not what's mandated by Old Testament religion, but you don't even have the option anymore. It's kind of like you want your sins paid for, it's Jesus or nothing.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for that. Cross X. The audience loved it, man. You guys are great. Appreciate the decorum. You guys are sharing. Good conversation. All right, we are jumping to round 3, and once again, this will be 8 minutes for each of you. So, Vocab, you're back in the seat for 8 minutes, and
wait, hold on. Yeah, I want to. We have 8 minutes, and this is like our. What is this?
This
I lost track.
This is rebuttal, I believe. Because it just says round 1, round 2, round 3. Round 1 was openings. Round 2 was sort of rebuttal or continuation of your opening. And then round 3, I believe, is another rebuttal or sort of to wrap up some of the lingering questions there that are still hanging around, concerns you guys want to address, right?
Okay.
And that's for 8 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so you got 8 minutes. Okay.
That's correct.
Let me get everything. I'm going to share my screen again here.
Set for 11:20 p.m.
Okay. I want to show something that's relevant to this debate that's important, I think, to understand. And it's this, that the Messiah suffering for his people is a proper Hebraic concept. And ultimately, the reason why I bring that up now is to remind everyone the nature of the passage before us, because that's exactly what's happening there. I think that Judah's take on it just simply doesn't do justice to the passage. There's a good book by Michael Brown I recommend people to get called The Real Kosher Jesus, and he says this, and it's correct. The concept of a suffering Messiah is well known in Jewish tradition. And there's a book on that you can see listed below, or I'm sorry, a website with sources for that. Jews have no basis for rejecting Yeshua's messianic claims because he suffered before he was exalted. To the contrary, this is a pattern laid out clearly in the Hebrew scriptures, and it is reflecting some later rabbinic traditions as well. Now, I saw some people in the live chat say, well, those aren't our people, or something like that. Well, I would want to know, when are we thinking that this transition happened to where these are no longer your people? Because if some elements of the Talmud, and I give 3 examples on the screen, actually, like Sanhedrin 98a especially, if they're attested from earlier traditions, then it seems like Judah would have to recognize these are his people. Nonetheless, it's important for the larger discussion between Christians and Jews. You have an example here in the Zohar 2:112a, and here's what it says. Check this out. In the hour in which they tell the Messiah about the sufferings of Israel in exile and the sinful among them who seek not the knowledge of their master, the Messiah lifts up his voice and weeps over those sinful among them. This is what is written. He was wounded because of our transgressions. He was crushed because of our iniquities. The point by saying that is, this passage was understood by many And in the history of Hebraic interpretation of these passages to refer to the Messiah and the Messiah suffering in some way for the sins of Israel. And in fact, because it appears the Messiah is killed in this passage, some people have come up with the concept in the past of two Messiahs. Dr. Raphael Patai, formerly University of Jerusalem, 20 books on Jewish religious belief, wrote this: when the death of the Messiah became an established tenet in Talmudic times, this was felt to be irreconcilable with the belief in the Messiah as the Redeemer who would usher in the blissful millennium of the Messianic age. So their wrestling was questioned because they realized this seems to be describing the Messiah's death. See? The dilemma was solved by splitting the person of the Messiah in two. That's why the Babylonian Talmud predicts Messiah ben Yosef will be slain. And then there's the other person sometimes discussed about being Messiah ben David. Looking at the Babylonian Talmud, check this out. Sukkot 52a, the land shall mourn every family apart, and that's referencing Zechariah 12:12 there. One said this is the mourning over the Messiah, indicating his death. And the land shall mourn. What is the reason of the mourning? Rabbi Dosa says, over the Messiah who will be slain. Not Israel. No one ever thought Israel was dying. I don't know where Judah is getting that from. Even the passage itself is symbolic. If you read the Hosea passage, it doesn't work to apply it to this Isaiah 53 passage. Here's a medieval commentator, dates and name on the screen. Quote, when Messiah ben Joseph is killed, his body will remain cast out. And then the context is saying on the streets of Jerusalem for 40 days until Messiah ben David comes and brings him back to life. And then Messiah ben David will reign in safety and peace for many days. That's a fascinating thing that some folks were thinking at the time. Now, the next slide relates to questions I was asking to Judah. And this is very important to just look at the screen and just see in its clarity. He pierced our transgression. He crushed our iniquities. Upon him, chastisement, our peace. His wounds, we are healed. It's so clear. The Messiah atoning for his people is a proper Hebraic concept. Even in the Targums, Isaiah 52:15, which says he'll sprinkle many nations. The king shall, now notice again, it's he sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shout at him, for that which had not been told them shall they see, that which they had not heard consider. Targum paraphrases this as a reference to the Messiah. Here's the quote: as the house of Israel anxiously hoped for him many days, which was poor among the nations, their appearance and their brightness being worse than that the sons of men. So notice, looking at as a messianic reference, and the source is on the screen. Another example relating to that. This verb here, he shall sprinkle, is essentially a technical word. It's found in the Mosaic law for sprinkling of oil, water, or blood, cleansing or purifying rite. And in Leviticus 4:6-7, the priests are to sprinkle blood before the altar, pour the blood at the bottom of the altar as a burnt offering. The Dead Sea Scrolls often present two Messiah figures, one from David's lineage and the coming king referred to as the Messiah of Israel. So they're doing their own thing there at Qumran, but interesting, you still got two. And the other is a priestly Messiah. In the scroll called the Messianic Rule, it's stated, and you have the references there, but specifically the Mishnah makes another reference to this priest anointed for battle. There's more interesting things in the Dead Sea Scrolls that show they understood. I encourage everyone to take a screenshot of this that show that they understood these passages to be messianic, including a hapax legomena that's very interesting in relationship to I anoint and anointing. And this is very important in relationship to Isaiah 53:5, where you have the pierced language, because there's a further connection to Zechariah 12:10. And this is from the Dead Sea Scrolls, because sometimes people talk about the Masoretic text in 53:10, and you'll see a textual corruption there about he made him sick. This is a common discussion. I'm surprised it wasn't brought up tonight, but I had a slide prepared for it just in case and wanted to share it with you. Now, I brought up Hebrews. I want to show something from Hebrews 10 in relationship to Isaiah 52 that's very important. 10:19-22. Having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he hath consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. That's what's happening in Isaiah 52. This is a further explicit version of it, but it's the same thing. And this is important because where's the high priest today, Judah? Where is he? He hasn't been around for a long time. It's Jesus or nothing when it comes to this. Where's the King of Israel? Where's the Messiah? All these were fulfilled in Jesus. The window for the Messiah to come is done. except for his second time. Hebrews 12:24, Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling. This is an important thing. And notice how the text speaks about him pouring out his soul. How is Israel pouring out their soul? And notice it's willing. Let me read this quote from Leon Morse's book. The offering of the nefesh is spoken of in sacrificial terms. It is an asham and a guilt offering. But in verse 12, we have this offering of nefesh described as he poured out his nefesh unto death. This is not figurative language, Judah. This person died for real. Now, there's multiple new covenant fulfillments. Judah said he doesn't want to go there. But if you don't have it filled in Jesus, you don't have it fulfilled. And I encourage Judah to think about this. Because of verses like this is why recently Zion Lex, he now sees Isaiah 53. He's referring to Jesus. For 25 years, he didn't. So this passage is powerful. Powerful. Multiple places show the Messiah must suffer, and multiple places where Jesus had to remind people about that reality. All right, there's more there to say for now, but I believe that is time.
It is indeed. All right, Judah, you're back up in the seat for 8 minutes, and I will start your time as soon as you begin to speak. You can mute it, Judah.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to share my screen real quick and just give a little rebuttal. Well, because this guy is not going to answer anything, but it's okay. It's all right. Just a little rebuttal. Vocab Malone doesn't want to go here. Ezekiel is the Paul killer. Paul and Ezekiel have some issues. I'm going to roll with the servant of Yahweh. Paul was no servant of Yahweh. You clearly see here that the royal Messiah will be offering a sin offering in the future. This means that Isaiah 53 cannot be talking about a person being a perfect sacrifice for sins. No, it's just talking about the nation's sins fall upon Israel because we're the ones given the Torah. They weren't giving anything. Psalm 73 tells you this. But he will not address this. Upon that day shall the prince, who is the ruler, you can find this in Ezekiel 34 and 24, prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bullock for sin offering. Sin offering. And 7 days of the feast he shall prepare a burnt offering to Yahweh. Well, according to Vocab Malone, his God is Yahweh, who was a not so good king named Jehu, which is, I don't know where Jehu would be his God, but that's weird. But still, you clearly see here whom he says is the Messiah is offering a sin offering to Yahweh. You can't have them both. You can't have Jesus be the royal Messiah, the king, offering burnt offerings to Yahweh and Yahweh too. Unless Jesus is schizophrenic or the prophets of Yahweh are liars. Come on, you can't have both. We got to stop that. 2. Another thing Vocab Malone knows about who one of our messiahs is Onias III, who was the leader of the Zadok or Qumran community of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is Ezekiel 44, verse 15. This is in the future, Christians. But the Levitical priests who are descendants of Zadok and who guarded my sanctuary when the Israelites went astray from me are to come near to minister before me. They are to stand before me to offer sacrifices of fat and blood, declares Yahweh. Now remember, Vocab Malone said he don't believe that we're going to have a temple. So that means the book of Isaiah has to go because Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2 says that the temple of Yahweh shall, stand as the on the mountain and all nations shall stream to it. But he says he doesn't believe that there's actually going to be a temple. Let's keep going. We can't go by rabbinic Judaism. It was created after Christianity. Okay, we're going to get them out of here, right? We're not going to go by Akiva Yosef, who was a Edomite Canaanite convert to the religion known as Judaism in the Christian era. So we got to get him out of here. They're not reliable. All right. This is Isaiah 51, which Vocab also keeps ducking out. Who's getting their behind kicked? It's the Israelites. This is Isaiah 51, verse 21. Therefore, hear now this, O afflicted. Remember Isaiah, the afflicted one. Oh, now hear this, you afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. Verse 22. Thus saith Yahweh the Lord, and your God that pleased the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of your hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury, slavery, and you shall drink no more of it again. Slavery, oppression, replacement theology, all that's going to go. Verse 23, Isaiah 51 through 23. Sorry. But I will put it in the hand of them that afflict you. This is talking to the children of Israel. This is not talking to Jesus, who has said to your soul, not Jesus' soul, to your soul, Israelites, bow down, that we may go over. And you has laid down your body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. No, wait a minute. This sounds exactly like, wait a minute. They went as a sheep and they offered not any resistance. And let's read it again. Isaiah 51:23. This is 2 chapters prior. But I will put it into the hand of them that afflict you, the nations, which have said of your soul, not Jesus, the Israelites, bow down when I come to your town, that we may go over. And you, Israelites, you has laid your body on the ground, which is voluntarily, right? And as the street to them that went over. Didn't say, bruh, stop. Who died and is coming back? Ezekiel 37, verse 9. He said, prophecy to the breath, prophecy to the breath, prophecy, son of man, and say to it, this is what Yahweh God says. Come, breathe, come breath, and from the 4 winds and breathe into these slain. Into these what? Who? These slain. Not him. These people. That they may live. So wait, there's some people that died, figuratively. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them, and they came to life and stood on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, son of man, these bones are the people Israel. Not the Christian church, not a billion Jesuses. It says the people of Israel. They say, the Israelites, our bones or our counsel are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Cut off. We're dead. We have no hope. We're dead. Therefore, prophecy and say to them, this is what Yahweh says, my people, I'm going to open your graves and bring you up from them, and I will bring you back to the land of Israel. That's that Ezekiel 53, verse 10. Then you, my people, not Jesus, not the Christian church, not the Gentiles, then you, my people, will know that I am Yahweh when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live. And I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, Yahweh, have spoken, and I have done it, declares Yahweh. How much time do I have?
You have 2 minutes left. 2 minutes and 10 seconds, actually.
All right, I don't need to share this anymore. Let me get off of that. All right. I was going to use my remaining time just to reiterate. We're having a major problem here. Again, much love to the Christian community. Do like Mark 12 says, keep the Torah. If you're a Gentile. If you're an Israelite, well, do like Jesus says and keep the Torah. Right, like Moses said. He said Jesus is greater than Moses. You can't find that anywhere in the Torah and the prophets, right? I get that it says that in the New Testament, but it doesn't say that in the Torah. So you clearly see that Israel is the one that lives, that the nations see, they hate, they abhor, and they thought that we were stricken by God. As you can clearly see in real time today, you the so-called Black Americans, a lot of Latinos, Arabs, Africans, whoever is an Israelite, Asians, even so-called Europeans, whoever's an Israelite, guess what? If the curses are on you, then you are the people that, Yahweh turned his face from, that will come back again. It's the Christian's job to, provoke you and antagonize you and to say that you no longer matter. As the book of Deuteronomy says, it says, you provoke me with your non-gods, I shall provoke you with the non-people. When during the time of Moses, there was no Christian people. Now, like Yahweh says, you see there's a religion, people that are literally saying, you don't matter anymore. Go away, young man. It's Christians' time. We're going to take your name out and put Jesus in there and expect you to deal with that. But our whole book is witness to you, your birth, life, death, and resurrection. With that, all praise to Yahweh God.
All right, thank you both for a fantastic debate. Appreciate you guys so much. So the last order of business will be the 20-minute Q&A, and then you'll get 2-minute closings from each of you. So we're going to jump into this Q&A right now. You'll see the questions pop up at the bottom of the screen, and both of you guys will get a chance to interact with the question that's at hand. You guys both will get 1 minute each to interact with that question. All right. With that said, let's get into it. And so we have a question here from Radical Love. Thank you for the question, Radical Love. Appreciate the question. All right. If the text is not about the Messiah, why do Tarjan, San 98B, the Zohar, I'm not pronouncing all that. She went in, associate Isaiah 53 to a Messiah, messianic figure. Judah, you want to take that first?
Yes. Actually, you can find this in the book of Psalms. If I'm not mistaken, it says, touch not my anointed ones, which it means Israel as a whole. But I'm not saying that Isaiah 53 is a messianic chapter. I'm just stating that, the Israelites are called the holy princes and the anointed ones and the son of Yahweh in Exodus chapter 4, verse 22.
All right. Vocab, what are your thoughts? I think you're muted, Vocab.
I try to mute so I'm not noisy when other people are doing their thing and all that. Okay, yeah. So this is an important, point, an important discussion. And what it relates to is the fact that when you look at the history of interpretation of Jewish interpretation, you see that these folks are frequently saying that Isaiah 53 is a messianic passage. Now, that changed later on, no doubt about that, really in the 10th century, but there's people who still recognize it, that it's supposed to be that. There's a good book I recommend. It's called HaMashiach, and it's subtitled The Messiah of the Hebrew Scriptures, written by Arnold Frutenbaum, recommended to me by my old friend Jeff Cran. And Appendix 8 lists all these views and then actually the interpretations, and then shows you them and then gives the sources for them. Now, this is just a small version. There's actually whole books on this. I'm just recommending sort of a simple introduction to this. And so that is an important point, because Judah's interpretation is historically out of step with many interpreters before him, even non-Christians. That's why I think it's an important point.
All right. Thank you both for that. And here's a super chat. Thank you, Al. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you for the support. All right. How do you reconcile Isaiah 6:5, where Isaiah and all the Israelites are said to have unclean lips, yet the righteous servant in Isaiah 53:9 has clean lips? What do you say? I think this is probably directed towards you, Judah.
Okay. He said, is it? I'm sorry. Can you read that again? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry.
Here, I can read the passage. Will that help?
Yeah, I can read it for you real quick.
Isaiah 6, I'll read Isaiah 6, 4 and 5. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called. The house was filled with smoke. And I said, woe is me, for I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. And he's saying, how can that be when... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry, my son's wild. She's in. Come on, man. Little Spider-Man. So if you look here out of the Stones Tanakh, you will see here in Isaiah chapter 6, it says Isaiah's vision of the heavenly court. So it is Isaiah with the unclean lips, to answer his question, that's speaking. And Isaiah 53:9, just to answer this question, there, like again, Isaiah 53:9 is talking about a process of time during Israel's inception to its final glory when it returns back to the land. And there is a generation in there that is not sinning. And Yahweh uses that 1/3 to repopulate and bring forth righteousness in the earth. Remember, it's also a part of the servant is going to be a righteous remnant. It's Zechariah chapter 14.
All right, Vocab.
Well, if Judah's going to keep on telling us this is Isaiah 52 and 53 is some kind of like chronological phase description of the life of Israel, at some point during the debate or Q&A, I don't know if he's got one available. I think he should show some kind of chronological chart with the verses and the chapters in corresponding, breaking down to certain times of history within Israel's history. I don't think he could do that because I don't think it will line up at all, especially with what he just said, because Isaiah 53:9, to the person who dropped the super chat their point, it says that he had done no violence. There was no deceit in his mouth. This is referring to the suffering servant. But when you go early in the book, This is during Isaiah's time he is saying this. In Isaiah 6, he says, I am a man of unclean lips. But he doesn't stop there. He says, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. So both he and the people have unclean lips. So Isaiah can't be the suffering servant over here. And the people who also have the unclean lips, they can't be the servant over here because they all have unclean lips. And yet this righteous servant has no deceit in his mouth. So it's a great question, and I think shows the problem with the nation of Israel being thought of as the person or the collective unit, in view in Isaiah 53:9.
All right. And here is a question, another super chat. Thank you, Radar Apologetics. Oh, Mr. Ed, what's going on with you, Eduardo? Appreciate you, brother, for the super chat. All right, this question is for Judah. And Zechariah 3:8 says that Joshua, high priest, is a symbol of the branch Messiah to come. In Ezra 3:2, he is called Yeshua. Doesn't it show name of the true Messiah in the Old Testament and shoot down your fake Hebrew?
Hebrew is a Greek word. I don't speak Greek. I am learning it though. It says that Joshua high priest is a symbol of the. Actually, you actually have that correct. From Joshua the high priest into the last Messiah, Zedekiah high priest, Onias III, who died in 170 BCE. He's actually correct about that. This is not talking about a royal Davidic anointed one, but a Levitical one. So this guy's totally off. Now Zerubbabel was a governor and not a king. He was still subservient to the Media-Persian Empire. So that would mean that your God, king, man, whatever, is subservient to a, like, come on, we got to stop that.
All right, vocab.
I'm a little confused by Judah's answer there. But this is an interesting passage to bring up. And, I think a great debate would be between Rabbi Eduardo and Judah Natzarah. I would love it if we could come up with a topic and set them up. I think that would be great to see that. But great points. I don't really have much more to say. And Judah kind of, except for one thing, Judah is an interesting person with his Hebrew because he's not a camp guy. He's a Tanakh only guy, certainly. But yet, something that is usually associated with the camps, which is the Lashawan Kodash style of pronunciation, he holds to certain elements of it. And so sometimes it's a little, from the outside perspective, a little mismatch and a little different because a lot of the Tanakh only Israelites, they do not accept Lashawan Kodash in any version. And so it's a little bit of an incongruity there. But nonetheless, here we go. So good question and interesting response.
All right.
Hey, can I respond? Just a little response, please. Just a quick one, Marlon, if I may. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, go ahead.
The modern Hebrew, rabbinical Yiddish pronunciation of modern Hebrew has more in common with the Hebrew Israelite camps. They both called their language or dialect Lishun Kadush and Lashawan Kodash. We speak what's biblically in the Torah. It's called Yahweh Dayath. It basically means Judith. It's like the feminine version of the word Judah, right? And we speak that. We also know some Arabic. We know Aramaic. So we speak an Afro-Asiatic dialect and not a Russian, Polish, Germanic, Ukrainian, dialect. We speak the Afro-Asiatic. So, yeah. And it's not called Hebrew. It's a Greek word.
All right, vocab, did you want to respond to that? Then we can end this question.
I don't I don't really agree with the characterization of the language and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But if that's what he wants to say, maybe that could be a discussion between him and Radar at another time. But the Zechariah 3:8 passage is interesting because you got this talk about associates. Most likely that's Joshua's fellow high priest there, or fellow priest. I'm sorry. And of course they're serving in the new temple, and they're going to function as a sign that God will bring my servant. A title used 31 times of David, the branch or shoot. And that's why it's important. This does relate to the Isaiah 53 and 52 discussion, by the way, because of that thing that it also ties in with Isaiah 11:1, rather that theme, not thing, but that theme. And this is a future Davidic king, that's who Jesus is. He's a son of David. of humble origins, listen to the way it's described, who is associated with the coming kingdom of God with all of its blessings. And you can see that in multiple places throughout the Tanakh as well. And so this promise of a servant that is being discussed here is ultimately fulfilled in Yeshua. And that's why it makes perfect sense to tie that all together. I think Judah's discounting the Isaiah 11:1 connection is a strange and unjustified move. And so thank you, Radar, for bringing that up.
All right, and Radar has actually come in with another super chat, and this is for Judah again. Why are you using an Edomite? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name down here. I don't want to jack it up, so I'm pretty sure you guys can read that. Hopefully it's not too fuzzy on you guys' side. Stone edition. Edomite. I don't want to do it. Stone edition. Hopefully you guys will see those.
It says Ashkenaz. It says Ashkenaz is what it says.
Ashkenaz. Okay. Ashkenaz, Tanakh. That's what it is.
I read it. I use it because English is our first language. So when I need to teach the listening audience who may not be familiar with the Hawadeaf language, I have to speak to them in English. Second off, there's no English equivalent that's going to bring out the quality and power of, I would use the word Hebrew, so you understand what I'm saying. There is no English. I speak Japanese as well. There are certain things you just cannot translate with the full force and quality due to their different languages. So you can point the finger at me if I use the KJV or any other Bible, but Stone's Tanakh with the quote unquote with the quote unquote Hebrew is our go-to scripture. So, but you paid $5 for that question? That's weird. Okay.
All right. Any thoughts, Vocab?
What? I don't actually know 100% for sure if Judah holds to the whole Edomite thing. I don't assume that he does necessarily. I don't really remember if I've heard him talk about it before, because of course not all Hebrew Israelites hold that white folks are Edomites or that they're really around anymore or anything like that. So I don't know. It'd be an interesting question it's not really the topic of the debate, but Judah, do you even hold that white folks are Edomites?
Yes, Edom spread into all people, not just white people. But there
could be
really
black
people right
Edomites
now are Edom.
Okay, so you hold to a similar. Okay. Well, so that answers. So it kind of is a valid question then in my mind about using it. But okay, it is what it is.
All right. And Radar again, since another super chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the support. Why in Zechariah 6:11 does Joshua wear two crowns? And that's Hebrew, plural. He wears a crown for priesthood and for kingship, pointing to Messiah. Zerubbabel never gets a crown. Judah?
So, again, Zerubbabel did not wear a crown, but Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest are both symbolic of the offices of the secular and temporal offices of Israel, which are the high priesthood and the king, which are both anointed offices. So, though they are symbolic of that, and Zerubbabel definitely didn't wear the royal crown because that would have been an affront to the Median Persian kings and rulers. It's just symbolic, speaking of the two anointed lines of the kingship and the monarchy.
All right. Any thoughts, Vocab?
Zechariah 6:11. It's funny how we're like, I don't know, we're going all over all kinds of places. It's interesting. Let's see, what's it say? I'm looking at this and I'm trying to, let me just read what it actually says, if that's okay. Take from them silver and gold and make a crown and set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak. And of course, this is English translations of the Hebrew, because it would say Yeshua, essentially, and Jehozadak, the high priest, and say to him, thus says the Lord of hosts, behold, the man whose name is the branch, for he shall branch out from his place and he shall build the temple of the Lord. So that's important too, because there you have the branch thing yet again, and it seems to be messianic in its essence. I will say that Radar is a smarter guy than I am, so I didn't. This is not a passage that I remember looking at deeply, but I can tell that this is a testimony of the coming union of the priest and the king into one office. I wouldn't know any that seems pretty clear to me when you look at it, that this is a testimony about something that's going to happen. What is it? The union of the priest and the king into one office. Well, who could that be? Well, since it's talking about the branch, who of course we understand is from David's line, Jesse's line, whichever term you want to use here, that works the same, of course. He's going to be the one, the Messiah. That's fascinating. So that crown is supposed to stay there until he who comes, whose right it is, which is brought up in other places of scriptures. I pulled up some cross-reference notes here to look at this, by the way. Great passage, such as Ezekiel 21:27, until Shiloh comes, that is, in Genesis 49:10. So those are great questions. Thank you, Radar, for sharing those. And that's why everyone should subscribe to Radar's channel.
Definitely. All right, guys. Here's a question for you, Vocab. All right. Ask Malone.
I run to the restroom real quick. I'll try to hurry back. I just run to the restroom real quick. I'm drinking fruit water.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. That's fine. I could take next question, right?
Yeah, this question's for Vocab. So I hope by the time you come back, it'll be your turn. All right, Vocab. Let's answer this question. Isaiah 49:3 asked him who the servant is precisely and who this individual is that God is going to show his glory through in John chapter 12, verse 48.
All right. Yeah, leave that on the screen for a second there. So Here's what Isaiah 49:3 says, everybody. And he said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Isaiah 49:3. Well, understand this is talking about the servant of the Lord here. And the servant of the Lord is going to save the nations. When you look at 1 through 13, that's what's going on here. And this place where we're at right here in Isaiah 49, it sits in what sometimes is called the second of the servant song. Some people say there's more than 4 servant songs, and obviously the themes throughout Scripture more than that, but traditionally usually you hear people say there's 4 that they can count. I would say that this does describe the Messiah, especially when you pair it in with Isaiah 42, 1 through 9. And now he does an excellent thing, in my view, to bring up John, because watch what John says here. So I know he's got limited characters. So if it's okay, if I could actually read it, that everybody can hopefully get the gist of what is being said here, I would guess. John 12:48. Wait, you said John 12:40, right? The one who rejects me and does not receive. Is that that must be the wrong thing? Oh, I think you mean earlier, but I'll read John 12:48, but I think you mean an earlier verse in here. I'll show you in a second here, because that says this: I have not spoken of my own authority, but the Father who sent me has given me a commandment, what to say and what to speak. So he probably means an earlier passage, if I had to guess, which would be 38, because here's what 38 says, not John 12:48, but it's okay, I understand. It says this: so that the word spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore they could not believe, for again Isaiah said, he has blindfolded their eyes and hardened their heart, lest they see with their eyes and understand with their heart and turn, and I would heal them. And so this is interesting, because I actually in my notes, I brought up how John 38, no, I'm saying it. 38 was quoted, quotes parts of Isaiah. And the next line is very important. Isaiah said these things, and listen to this, everybody, because he saw his glory and spoke of him. So the reason why that's fascinating is this seems to identify in some way the Messiah with the glory of the Lord. Nevertheless, verse 42 says, many of the authorities believed in him, but fear the Pharisees they did not confess, so that they would not be put out of the synagogue, for they love the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. It's probably my time to be able to answer the question. Judah, do you see the question on the screen? I think he's back, Judah. I don't know if he hears. Yeah. Maybe Marlon, you can get his attention.
Yeah, Judah, can you hear us? And you may be muted, Judah. You probably muted. Yeah, you're still muted.
Can't hear you yet. You are still muted. Is
Yeah,
your volume
yeah,
turned
you
down or
still-
something?
I'm sorry, you guys. The actual page went down. I still can't see my other stuff. The
We got
picture
you.
I can't
We
see
can hear you now.
the question.
Yeah, the question is, it says, ask Judah about Isaiah 49:3. Ask him who the servant is precisely and who this individual is that God is going to show his glory through. And he also threw John chapter 12, verse 48 in there as well.
All right. It says Isaiah 49:3. He said to me, "You are my servant Israel, in whom I take glory." Wait, what's going on? Can you guys hear me here?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, I don't see you guys. Something's going on with my computer. Yeah, I don't see. So who is this individual? It says Israel. Isaiah 49:3. It says Israel is the servant.
Okay.
That's my answer. Israel.
All right.
Oh,
Cool.
was it? What did he say? There's more. I can't see the. Oh, yeah. I can't see the rest of the question, but yeah, Israel is the servant. That's what it says in Isaiah 49:3.
All right. And here's a super chat here. And this question is for Vocab. Thank you for the super chat, son of Jacob. Appreciate the support. For Vocab, Isaiah chapter 45, verse 21 through 25, all the seed of Israel will glory in Yah. Why does it say Yah is the only Savior and not Jesus?
Right. Well, the question, of course, assumes wrongly, I would say, that Jesus is not to be identified as God. So he certainly is. So actually, this is a proof text, rightly understood, for Jesus being God because he is the only Savior. But let me go a little bit deeper than that. Instead of just merely contradicting him, let's look at verses 21 through 25 and then ask ourselves, is these show up in the New Testament? And indeed they do. In fact, Paul cites verse 23 twice from the Septuagint in Romans 14:11. I want to read it to you. It says, "We will all stand before the judgment seat of God, for it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God." Now that's very interesting because the same author, Apostle Paul, writes in Philippians chapter 2, this: "Therefore," this is starting in verse 9 of Philippians 2, "God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name." Now listen to this, because he's taking the same language. If you guys look through the passage that the questioner brought up on the screen, the same language applied only to Yahweh and applying it to Jesus. Listen to this. "So that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." And so this is essentially a New Testament hymn that adapts this verse, applies it to Jesus, showing that Jesus shares the position of Yahweh. So this is a fascinating, important point to be made, and it ultimately shows that Jesus is to be identified directly with Yahweh. That is the claim and the truth.
All right. Judah, any thoughts?
Yes, Vocab, you are a great dancer, part of the Christian dance team. He just avoided the question altogether. What the person is trying to say, shout out to SOJTK, what he's trying to say is, why does it say that the name Yahweh, not Yahweh, who's Jehu, not Jesus, why does it say Yahweh? And Vocab gave a weird answer that Jesus is not Yahweh, like he's not. Then he goes back and says, well, Jesus is a part of the Godhead. What we need to be clear is again, this goes back to him saying that Jesus is going to be the ultimate sacrifice, or is the ultimate sacrifice, and is going to rule. We pull scriptures up in Ezekiel and Isaiah, which he says he doesn't believe in. He says that that his God is going to give offerings to our God. That doesn't make any sense. I guess it's not supposed to, but yeah.
All right. And this will be the final question of the evening. This will be the final question here, and this question is for Vocab here. If Jesus was, thanks for the question, Davion J, appreciate it. If Jesus was a sacrifice for all time, why does it say that the prince will make a sacrifice for himself with the Zadokites in Ezekiel 45, verse 17?
I am having trouble understanding why this is a significant passage here in Ezekiel 45. But let's go back and let's look at this again, because not only the problem with it is not only is it not really a well thought out question from what I can tell, and I guess I'm just missing something at it. I'm willing to say that, but also it doesn't seem to relate to the topic of the debate. The top of the debate technically wasn't even, is Jesus the Messiah? Now, obviously, that relates to the topic of the debate. I understand that. Jesus being Messiah, because we're saying Isaiah 53 is messianic and applies to him. Okay. But it's definitely the topic of the debate tonight is not, is Jesus God or something like that? But a lot of these questions are about that. And I guess that's fine in a way, but I don't see how it applies. This idea that Jesus is going to come back and offer sacrifices, I don't see that anywhere in the text of what this is saying at all. So I guess what I would need is this to be explained, that that's what it's saying, to be shown to prove that's what's going on. I don't see that at all. This has to do with land allotments and all kinds of other stuff, because when you read through Ezekiel 45, it's talking about how much things cost, 60 shekels, tax to the prince, and you say, okay, what's going on here? Now, we understand that this is sort of a vision of Ezekiel, and some of these kind of things regarding tax and national worship provide a theme to it. But exactly what is going on with it? It seems like it's basically just describing worship, and you have the feast and the festivals tied in as well. So I just don't see how this is saying the Messiah is going to come back and be offering temple sacrifices or anything like that. So that's the problem, is I don't agree with the premise of the question. So I know I'm not answering the way you guys want me to answer it. It's because I don't agree with the premise of the question, that that's what it's saying is going to happen. I'm not saying I don't agree with Ezekiel. I'm not saying I don't think it's, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't agree with that interpretation. So it's hard for me to answer according to your premise. I'm sorry for not answering in the way you want, but I just don't agree with the premise of the question. What else do I do?
All right, Judah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is told you we're dangerous, but so what Vocab is not seeing is we keep trapping him up on is he doesn't understand that in the book of Ezekiel 45 and 17 that is the secular ruler, the Davidic king, making sacrifices to Yahweh for sin, for sin offerings. It isn't just sin offerings. It's also, upon the prince shall be the responsibility of the burnt offerings, the meal offerings, the libations on the festivals of the new moons and on the Sabbaths and on appointed times of the house of Israel. He shall prepare sin offering, meal offering, burnt offering, peace offering to atone on behalf of the house of Israel and for himself. And Vocab is listening to Paul. So Paul's making him stumble because he thinks that Jesus is a perfect sacrifice and doesn't need to sacrifice anymore. So we're saying, well, if this is Jesus, the Davidic monarchy or Davidic monarch, the royal Messiah, why is he making sacrifices? And Vocab can't get it. We know why, but we'll just leave it alone. Yeah.
All right, guys. That concludes this debate and Q&A. Appreciate you guys so much for joining me on the Gospel Truth. Fantastic time. You guys were very respectful and honoring each other, and the decorum was absolutely fantastic. And we got a lot out of it. The audience definitely appreciated it. And at the end of the day, you guys are obviously going to walk away not agreeing with each other, right? I don't think anyone was convinced in the debate, but I do think that this should spur you guys to further study. And perhaps there's a nuance of your own position that you say, well, maybe Vocab brought up a good point of reference. Maybe I should go dive into that a little bit more. And same thing for Vocab, right? Maybe it's a good point where Judah said something that would trigger Vocab's thought as well, and say he would dive into that a little more. If we walk away, we depart, let's at least have that in view of interacting with the positions a little deeper. With that said, do you guys have any closing words before I let you guys go?
Depends if Judah wants to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I
want to give a shout out to Brother Marlon Wilson. It's a great channel, great debate channel. You have definitely You came through, Brother Marlon. I'm not a Christian, but I'm like a Vocab Malone. Shout out to my opponent too, Vocab Malone. Shout out to the Christians out there who stand up for the Christian gospel, stand 10 toes down, don't half step like Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys. This is a very great platform. I can't see the audience, but peace and blessings to you all. I want to give a shout out to Vocab Malone for taking this debate. His stature is definitely up. He's definitely respected from the Torah Knights. Hopefully I can work with Brother Vocab in the future about some of the erroneous Hebrew Israelite and Christian teachings. Perhaps we can do a podcast someday. But yeah, man, I had a great time. I prepared. And thank you, Marlon, for hosting again. I just want to not be long with it. And all praise and glory to the Most High Yahweh God. And shout out to all the Israelites out there watching worldwide. Shalom.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Vocab, what you think, man? What you got?
Well, I appreciate you hosting, Marlon, and everyone coming through at a late time, and to Judah and his family, shout out to them and all that. And I'm glad we were able to discuss this passage. It was interesting to me because I guess I kind of assumed Christians all knew something about this passage. But today I was eating with some friends, and I said, hey, you got any last minute tips for me? I'm doing a debate on Isaiah 53 about applying to Jesus. And I thought they would just start conversing with me about it, sort of from what they had already known to an extent, but they turned to it and read it, and I realized they were reading it. I'm not saying for literally the first time, but it was as if they were reading it for the first time. And so I guess I was, on one sense, troubled, thinking, well, man, Christians need to know this passage. And, I'm over here talking about the context of the passage and everything else. And I guess I kind of assume Christians at least knew this passage, because I'm sitting here thinking otherwise, like, if you don't know this passage, how do you even show someone that you believe Jesus is the Messiah? Because this is kind of like a starting point, But with all that being said, my mild sort of disappointment, I guess you might say, as they read it, I could see their eyes opening and going, who else is this about? And granted, it was a first reading for them as they run through it, but it was also cool to see for someone who hasn't been exposed to it. And yes, I understand they share Christian presuppositions. Okay, I understand all that. These weren't, Tanakh only Jewish folks, yes. But it was beautiful to see their eyes open and realize how clear and explicit this passage is and be excited about it. And I pray that it's going to drive them to more study, and they'll look into it and maybe watch this debate and all of that type of stuff, because people should know this. And there's a lot we didn't cover tonight, but my goodness, there's so many amazing passages to look at from the Old Testament of scriptures, Psalm 22 and a whole bunch of other ones. But I'm glad we were able to discuss this one tonight. So shout out to everybody who came through. Thank you very much. And salute.
All right, guys. Thank you once again for coming on the God's Truth, and perhaps we could do this again sometime. And if Radar and Judah, if you guys want to get down, I don't want y'all venturing off to some other platform. You know where you guys can get down at, all right? So go ahead and hit me up. My DMs is open. Hey, Judah, you need to get more connected at DM too, man. Folks be contacting you, and you'll respond for days at a time, bruh.
Oh, my apologies. It's been a tumultuous month with the moving and relocating and things, but I will definitely, I kept it open today, Marlon. I was like, hey, Marlon, responding back. So again, thank you very much.
Yeah, you got it.
That was the Most High. That was the Most High Yahweh working against you.
Judah Naz, Vocab Malone podcast coming in the future.
It's coming, man. I definitely subscribe to that podcast, man. But once again, thank you guys, man. Appreciate you guys. You guys go ahead. Well, Judah, you go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day. And Vocab, go get some sleep, brother. I appreciate you guys. Yeah. You guys take care, man. I see y'all soon. Take care. God bless.
Peace. See y'all later.
All right. Another great debate in the books, guys. This was fun. And you guys might saw me looking kind of tired. I'm tired right now. I'm tired. This is a long with me. You're talking about I've been up all day, right? I've been up all day, and I got 4 kids in the house. I got 5 total. 1 is gone. But and the kids drive you crazy. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I got that debate. You know, so I am running on fumes right now. But this was a fantastic debate. I really did appreciate this debate. And I pray, like I said to Vocab and Judah, that there will be many of you guys in a live chat that will just walk away, like, obviously not convinced, right? You'll say, the arguments made did not convince me, whatever side of the argument you're on. If there's anything you guys should walk away from, right, with this debate, is that it should drive you to study more, because there's a real possibility that you could be wrong about what you believe in. The last thing you want to do is be so stuck and wedded to your position that you will not even interrogate your own position to see if it's true in that capacity, right? Take time, study, think about it, right? And see where the cards lay. You know, if an interpretation of Isaiah 53, right? If the interpretation of Isaiah 53 does interpret and say, and the interpretive value says that this is pointing to Jesus, then it will be honest for you to accept that, and then take your exegetical methodology further into other areas of the text and see where it lays as well, right? So it's important for us to be honest about our position, be transparent about our position, and wherever we think we lay at and we think we're right, let's take a step back real quick and let's see if the scriptures say what we think it says, right? Because you can be wrong, right? And so that's an honest way of interacting with the biblical text, and it's an honest way to deal with God's word. So let's make sure we are doing that and being fair with the biblical text, all right? As that said, I am beat, and so I'm going to get out of here. And I thank you guys for joining me on this episode of The Gospel Truth. Make sure, if you have yet to do so, subscribe to The Gospel Truth and hit that notification bell to The Gospel Truth so to miss out any shows, debates, or interviews or commentaries that are coming up here in the future. And once again, share, like, hit the subscribe button and like before you leave. Hit that like button. We have 124 likes. Appreciate the support. Appreciate all the super chats that we're giving. All them funds go to a good purpose, and this is the ministry, supporting the ministry. Thank you so much for joining us this episode of The Gospel Truth. Look forward to next time. Take care. God bless.